Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman Dodd, and of course, we are here, but I'm not alone as I celebrate an early Canada Day and early 4th of July because we're taking some goddamn breaks here at TWIG over the next few weeks. I'm joined with my co-host in the city of Kitchener itself,
Alex, the producer.
I really couldn't think of anything tremendous to say about Kitchener other than the fact it's been a unique site over the last week, if you've been following some of the local news media for some of its objectionable content in terms of its statues, which seems to be a thing going around in the last news cycle, if you've been following things.
Which, by the way, wouldn't be a first. I mean, we had a statue of Kaiser Wilhelm that was destroyed, right around the time World War One.
Yeah.
And they never found the head. So it's when it comes to statues and civil unrest, this city is known for it.
Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting little while. I myself, this past week, as I usually give you guys an update on what I've been doing, I found out a friend of Blair's actually had sent me a link to something that a mayor had said, a mayor of a county, and he's this old crusty white dude who said some pretty hateful things, some pretty heinous things during Pride Month. Obviously, that's what this is right now. And an online petition got started, and as of this recording, it's around 9,300 signatures, which is 3 times the population of that township. And the mayor has done a couple of different interviews. I've never seen a man be so morally ambivalent. He's like, well, if I hurt somebody, that's their problem. So I'm making it kind of a mission to write a formal complaint to the county. And, I'm done dealing with bigots. In fact, 2020 has been my honey badger year in the regards that I'm not taking any bullshit this year. I'm so done with it. And that's been an interesting part of my week.
And the bigger contention with it is even if you're somebody who's listening is like, it's if it's his beliefs, he can say what he wants. Yeah. But when the rest of your county votes on something specific, and then that person says, no, I won't do it because I don't believe in it and I won't allow it to happen, it becomes a bigger issue of, well, you're an elected official. You're supposed to be enforcing the will of the people,
mm-hmm.
and if the will of the people is against your personal beliefs, you have one choice: step down.
Yep.
You have to refuse. If you're going to refuse it on the grounds that you don't believe in it, then you don't believe in your position representing the people of your county.
Absolutely.
So you're not a dictator. You don't get to choose because you don't get to have final say. You get to make decisions on behalf of what you believe your constituents want, and if your constituents want something very different and you refuse it, you're no longer an elected official, you're a dictator.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing just to see how much progress and things have been happening on a local level kind of recently. So I'm glad to see small changes are happening. I'm glad to see people are having conversations. I'm having a number of interesting conversations on Facebook about various social topics. And again, I'm glad that's happening. However, my week has not always been in the political game. I've actually gotten out this week. In fact, this week marked a rather monumental occasion where my circle, the social distancing circle, was allowed to briefly open. And this week I saw you for the first time in 3 months or 4 months.
I came by
in late February.
Late February, where we celebrated my belated birthday, and then I said, "Hey, I'll see you in a week," and then they shut down the country.
Yeah, so we're like,
it was like the first week of March. I said, "Hey, I was visiting my mom for her birthday," and I went home and I said, "Hey, I'll see you." So it was maybe a week and a half later, and then we were like, "Well, we can't now." And at first we thought, oh, maybe we still can. And then we're like, no, they said it on the news pretty clear. We can't do this. So that's when we converted. And it feels like it's been a year, even though it was, 3 months or so. Because we were used to producing the show, or even if we weren't producing it together in person, we were planning the show, doing things together 1 to 2 times per week.
Yeah. So it's just been it was weird not seeing each other for a while. I mean, obviously we found a way to be more productive to the show online using a piece of remote recording software. You've probably noticed a difference in quality over the last few weeks since we've been using a different service other than Discord. I mean, Discord is fine to hang out in. It's good to have as a backup. But we found the service to be questionable for podcasting recently just because it was acting funny with voices and everything.
Well, when all the people started going there, and there's been a dramatic uptick in users, I think that the server load had something to do wrong, and it wasn't anything we were doing, and when you talked live, it sounded fine, but the recording back end would like pitch your voice an octave or two lower than it should be and stretch you out. Sometimes it sounded like you were like, instead of it going robotic like Skype does, it would just go like, and you're like, what the hell is that? And you couldn't do anything to fix it. You couldn't find it until you were already editing in post. So we were like, is there any other options? So we found there's a couple things out there, and we're trying a few different things. It's still the best if you've got to record, let's say, like 10 people talking at once. It's still probably the best for that if we were having a huge group discussion. But for regular podcasting or regular interviews and that, it's like, oh, it's a pain in the butt to try to edit around right now.
Yeah.
It might go back to being the way it was, a year ago when we started with it, but who knows?
Yeah. So we discovered that. So it was nice just kind of hanging out, doing all that. I also managed to get outside a couple times this week, which was not actually even this morning as we're recording the show on the Sunday. You're hearing this on Monday morning. I got out early, which is fantastic. And for me, this is kind of a big deal in terms of physicality, because being an amputee, you have to learn how to transfer to your wheelchair, transfer to other surfaces. This morning, I went from being woken up at 9 a.m. to being in my chair by 9:05. And you're saying 5 minutes to transfer to a chair. No, I was awake for about 3 minutes. I was in my chair in less than 2. Basically, I got my pants on, put my shoe on, which for those of you that know me physically, that's a task to do just because of all the steps involved. And something a lot of people don't think about.
You've been pretty open. And for anybody who doesn't know, like, you've been open about it. It's not just amputee; it's a weight issue too, and that compounds it. So when you think about the physical challenges of moving around as a bigger person, even with 2 legs, and then you think, okay, I've only got 1, and oh, by the way, I haven't been outside because of either weather or COVID in months. So for you to go from what some people would take 10, 15 minutes just to get prepped to go out, and you're able to do it now in about the same amount of time it takes for me to go to the washroom in the morning, put my clothes on.
Yeah.
It's like you're getting it into a routine now where you're like, holy crap, I can get outside within 5 minutes. That just as a mental thing, you're like, holy crap, now I can do anything.
Yeah, like I've been out so much in the last 2 weeks that I've been out more in the last 2 weeks than I've been out in the last year. In fact, this week also marked another major milestone. On Thursday, it was a really, really nice day. And I said to my wife, Blair, we're going to Walmart, obviously with respect to social distancing and masks, because we finally got masks that work proper, where we can breathe through them. They protect us. They're comfortable. And I went to Walmart, and that's the first time I've been inside of a retail store the size of Walmart in over a year, or close to a year anyway. And it's just a big milestone, because the last time I went to the mall, it was disappointing. There was nothing to do. And even for me to get to the mall, it's $50 in cabs to get there and $50 back. So not worth it.
Yeah. And I mean, the last time you were probably in a building like that would have been when I think when I went to see, did we see the Kevin Smith movie together?
Yes. So
that would have been it. Yeah, that was it. Because I don't think you went to the theaters after that, did you?
No, I did to go see Star Wars. Okay,
so that's the last time. So yeah, you hadn't really been in a retail building since like December.
Yeah, so big changes. What about you though? What has your week consisted of?
Catching up on different reviews and stuff, and figuring out how I can wire up my place. One of the reviews that I'm working on is for some high-end Wi-Fi mesh technology stuff. And I realized to make use of it properly, we got to drill some holes.
Oh.
So we'll be doing that. So I've been making networking cable, which I used to do back in high school, which consists of getting the raw cable, twisting it yourself, crimping it, making all your stuff. It sounds simple, but it takes a long time when you're using like higher end shielded stuff. So I've been doing that, and messing up a few times because it's been a while. Other than that, it's been mostly logistically like making things move around. I moved one of my my television computer, or like my home theater PC that I was using for media consumption in the living room, moved that to the bedroom because I want to play Persona, and I don't want to sit at a computer chair or in a living room. I want to be able to play from bed because RPGs, if I'm going to play RPGs, I'm going to play from a spot where I can sit for like 25 hours straight, because you know me. So I moved that in there, did some had to move some cabling around, had to reorganize where things are plugged in, because load balancing, we don't want to blow any fuses. So it's the joys of living in an apartment that was wired up in the 1950s, right? So where they didn't expect you to have a television or an air conditioner or anything like that. So these old buildings, they're only 60 amp, which you need 100 amp for most standard apartments or houses to properly get a bunch of air conditioners working. Well, not Alex. He found out exactly what the loads are on every single wall socket and every single thing in the house. So everything is 100% balanced. And, knock on wood, there shouldn't be any issues with me blowing fuses like I did earlier in the year. And I ordered a whole bunch of extra fuses, so I've got like 6 or 10 of them. I think, about 6 left over, I think, in a drawer, which are my emergency fuses, because we had one blow in April, and then I wasn't able to get a replacement till June 5th, because everywhere in Canada was sold out because of the pandemic. People were panicking. Anybody that had an old house bought up all the old fuses. And it's like, well, they're like, you can get these new, breaker boxes. And I'm like, no, you can't. It's an apartment from the 1960s or like 1958 or something like that. It's like, no. And the landlord is not going to just pay tens of thousands of dollars to replace everybody's fuse boxes or everybody's fuse boxes with breaker boxes during a pandemic. So it took me a month and a half to get $20 worth of fuses. And if I had tried to order from the States, they were $20 a piece to import.
Yikes.
So yes, I was dealing with a lot of hardware crap, but other than that, I've been pretty good. I'm working on starting a game that pretty big title that I can't talk about yet, but I'm pretty excited for that. And then of course, I started up Persona 4 Gold just to get to the first part where I can save, so I didn't have to watch the intro video. And I've been pretty mesmerized by how good the video quality is compared to the Vita.
Yeah, speaking of Persona 4 Golden, I actually got that as well for my PC, because I almost never PC game, so I got it a couple days ago. I actually bought that for you.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
So I'm looking forward to going through this together. We'll probably do another prototype talking about Persona 4 Golden at some point.
Yeah. And then we'll do a follow. We're going to do JRPG July, see if there's a couple we want to play and get through there. I have 2 in mind. Other than that, so yeah, this is something that I know you didn't know about, but in the RPG community, it's sort of like Reddit and places, they call it JRPG July, and it's where you go through your backlog, the stuff you haven't been able to complete that you want to complete RPGs for.
Yeah, I myself am going to do Persona 4 Golden and Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
There you go. There's your 2.
So I'm looking forward to doing that in July. So speaking of that, before we go into the news this week, programming note, this will be the last major show from the next 2.5, 3 weeks. We will do a show if something big comes up in the news, like should something really catastrophic happen.
Somebody goes to war. Somebody goes to war, or somebody gets assassinated. Other than that, we're being quiet about things.
Yeah. We will be doing shows for the Ubisoft showcase. Should it be something fantastic, we'll do something for Stadia, Microsoft, obviously.
So expect a prototype, or probably 2 of them. One to cover Ubi/Stadia and one for Microsoft, because those are going to be the big ones. So, but those will be, again, 2 shorter shows, nothing with the major news, not these like 2-hour shows.
Yeah, you'll get maybe half an hour. If there is a regular show like this, it'll be less than half an hour.
Yeah, and there will be, likely, depending on what we have for review, there's going to be Turtle Treasures, where Mike might pop on if he's got a couple things that he had to work on. There will be that big Wi-Fi one I'm talking about will probably be a standalone 20-minute or so show, because we try not to put 20-minute reviews in like larger shows. So unless it's a big thing, like when we did
the
like
Division 2 or something.
Yeah, something like that, where it's big enough, it's like it's short enough to fit in a regular show, but not like Final Fantasy big, where we had to have our own entire dedicated show to it.
Yeah, so there will be, we are recording next week before we take our vacation. We are recording Loose Cannon. We are recording a Future Imperfect, and we are also recording a TWIG Sunday Funny. So we are squeezing in a lot of recording next week. So hopefully by next Friday, I don't want to look at a microphone for 2.5 weeks. I was planning on taking things off on Canada today. That's not happening. So
well, that's the idea, is that's going to be our, like, we're programming the next 3 to 4 weeks with this week.
Yeah, so look forward to it, folks. So that'll be what's coming up. So coming up on the show this week in terms of reviews, we'll be taking a look at an Xbox Game Pass game I had a chance to play called Minecraft Dungeons, which was kind of sleepily announced last year, I think.
They showed a bunch of trailers for it, and then I didn't hear any buzz about it, so I have a feeling I know why.
Yeah, we're also going to take a look at something on Stadia, and finally we're going to look at the new Pokemon DLC, both of those reviews coming from Alex. So thank you for joining us here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. I've been your host, Mike the Birdman. I've been joined with Alex the producer. So let's kick things off by going to a world of building blocks and creepers. This is Minecraft Dungeons. We're looking at Minecraft Dungeons, done by Mojang Studios 011, and this is being published by Xbox Game Studios, though you can get this game on the PS4 and the Nintendo Switch, as well as the Xbox One Game Pass. Well, this is one of these games that I actually kind of had a bit of an interest in, because I remember first seeing gameplay for it back at E3. I have never been into the Minecraft IP. My wife has used it for teaching a few times, and it just has never been my thing. So I kind of like, all right, well, I missed the Telltale Games boat on this, so maybe a hack and slash dungeon crawl will be my thing. And I was terribly, terribly wrong. It's not that this game is bad, it's fine. It's just that. It's just fine. The story, such as it may be, you play a random hero villager who's trying to free the land of, I don't even know if it has a name, from the machinations of the Arch Illager, a guy who gains the power of an item called the Orb of Dominance, corrupts his mind, hilarity ensues, and you go through different lands of varying difficulty levels, which you can go back, revisit levels at a higher difficulty level. You basically, this is like baby's first Diablo would be how I would describe it, so hope you don't take offense to that, but it's a really, really simple dungeon crawl. One thing I do like about it, though, is how it handles giving out loot, despite it being completely random. When you put enchantments on stuff, which you gain enchantment points for each level that you get, when you scrap that item, say you gain a more powerful sword and you want to equip that right away, if you scrap the old one, you get those enchantment points back, so you can dump those into your new item. However, I discovered one critical flaw in this. As I was playing through the game last night, I had a fairly high level pole arm, and I got something else, and I guess I wasn't paying attention, and I scrapped that pole arm by accident, and it left me with bare fists. Kind of a flaw of game design, in my opinion, for you to be left with no melee weapon. Now, when you reload a level, you get like a level 1 sword, but ultimately you'd have to go back through a level to get something more powerful. Now, there is a vendor which you can spend gems at, and you get a random item that's close to your level. I did 10 pulls I got one piece of useful equipment. I got a piece of armor that increased my level, gave me some extra health or something. Another thing that I noticed too, and this is just a kind of side note to that, you do get a ranged weapon. I had a crossbow, which finally worked. But what do I mean by saying finally worked? There's a bow button. You have to use the right trigger. I couldn't get that thing to trigger 9 times out of 10, and I'm using an Xbox Elite controller, and I guess it just wasn't working right or something. I just couldn't get the bow to work when I wanted it to work. When I got the crossbow, it was about 60% more reliable as to when my shots would go off. I guess it just had to be how I aimed my directional stick and hold the trigger at the same time. It felt very clumsy in that regard. You can also gain passive bonuses like, hey, you can now move faster, you can now blow stuff up, stuff like that. I mean, like I said, the thing is, the gameplay here, it's fine. The game is meant to be played with a couple of friends online. In fact, it defaults to online. I had nobody to play this with. So I only played single player, but after I lost that weapon very, very early on, I got very frustrated and very discouraged for this. So it's hard to say that I can recommend this unless you're a huge fan of the Minecraft IP and you know other people who have Game Pass want to play with you. Then maybe this is something you should check out. I mean, I can't see you spending money on this unless you are a die-hard Minecraft fan. There's no crafting in it, at least that I've seen. It's just find stuff, kill things, fight a boss. Some of them are really cheap. And you have a limited amount of lives to do it before it kicks you back to your camp, and you can try again, or you can lower the difficulty. Though beating it on the standard difficulty is pretty easy. You shouldn't have any real trouble going through it, though. Honestly, I can't see myself revisiting this again, even on Xbox Game Pass. It is a fairly small game in terms of its size and scope. There isn't a lot of replayability here unless you really want, I got more powerful loot, look at me, I'm God. I don't know. Minecraft Dungeons to me was a disappointment. However, though, if you do have friends, maybe it'll be more fun, but in my experience, it just wasn't all that fun. But it's on Xbox Game Pass, so no harm, no foul if you're already kind of paying for it anyway, though it is available for other platforms. So I would recommend you have friends if you're going to plan on purchasing this.
News on the march!
And welcome back to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm still Mike the Birdman. He's still Alex Producer. Well, it is time to take a look at the last nerd news before the summer vacation hits. So let's talk about some of the things that happened around the world this week. And our lead story this week is Nintendo is chilling its mobile ambitions after Animal Crossing success. This article comes courtesy of Bloomberg.com. So the company has been underwhelmed by the return on its mobile efforts, being betting that it can best capture gaming growth on its own platform. No shit. Nintendo company is retreating from the $77 billion mobile gaming arena after disappointing results deflated once lofty ambitions, ending a multi-year effort just as the market goes through an unprecedented COVID-era boom. President Shuntaro Fukawa proclaimed 2 years ago that smartphone games would be a $1 billion business, with growth potential building on his predecessor's promise that Nintendo would release 2 to 3 mobile titles each year. That spurred hopes among investors that the gaming powerhouse could carve out a substantial slice of the market. In May, however, the president adopted a markedly different tune, saying, "We are not necessarily looking to continue releasing many new applications for the mobile market." Nintendo's share slid 4% the day after that remark. Close observers might have sensed Nintendo was growing disillusioned with the mobile realm even earlier. Its smartphone games projects were born out of necessity to shore up the bottom line amid the Wii U's failure. Now, a rising surge in Switch's popularity and investor confidence, the Kyoto-based company appears to have reassessed the mobile business and narrowed its focus to its own console ecosystem. In the period from February through May, when other studios were posting record earnings along COVID-19 lockdown, Sensor Tower data showed marquee Nintendo titles like Super Mario Run plummeting by double digits. At the same time, Nintendo's own Animal Crossing New Horizons had just become the quintessential haven from the virus and anxiety, powering the Switch console to new heights of popularity and pushing the company's shares price to a 12-year high last week, as of this recording. Mobile games are expected to make $77.2 billion this year, which would account for half of the overall video game industry sales, according to research from Newzoo. But since the release of Mario Kart Tour in fall 2019, Nintendo's mobile pipeline is empty, said Serkan Toto, a mobile games consultant in Tokyo. In a sense, Nintendo's enormous success on console reduced the need and pressure to put resources into mobile. And then the article goes on like this. I'm not surprised, considering they wanted to put a lot of freemium things into it, like, hey, get the game for nothing, but if you want to unlock Peach or Mario, spend so many coins. Like, I know with like Dr. Mario, if you wanted some of the other doctors, you had to spend money. I know in Mario Kart Tour, it was like loot boxy. It just wasn't fun to spend money on these games. And the games were okay quality, but why would I spend that when I can just get a Switch game that I get to keep forever?
Yeah, and it's also the simplicity. Don't get me wrong, some simple games can be fun, but we're expecting a little more from Nintendo.
Yeah, I mean, like, to me, Dr. Mario should have been a hit, but it was just not. I mean, I'd rather see a new Dr. Mario on the Switch. That's where it should have went, because you look at a game, because I think Tetris 99 is free, but if you want to pay the modes, it's like $14, and who cares?
Here's a question. Why isn't Dr. Mario done in that style? Like 99 people playing Dr. Mario.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer, and that can't be that hard to make.
No, they already got the tech there for Tetris, the netcode, and surprisingly, it's netcode that Nintendo made that actually works.
Yeah. So, like, what the hell? I mean, and honestly, a Mario Endless Runner never appealed to me in the first place. I mean, it makes sense for, like, I guess something like, say, Crash Bandicoot, I think, has his own. I think there's a Sonic one as well.
If they wanted to conquer the mobile market, in quotes, they and not be viewed like Square Enix has been viewed as money grubbing by have you seen, like, they release these RPGs and then it's
if your character dies, you pay $1 to revive them right away or something.
Yeah, they keep doing all that bullshit and people pay for it, even though they're to be honest, you're completely wasting your money doing that when there's better games to be played, physically or on a major console. Excuse me. But they, if they really wanted to take it by storm, you know what they should have done? They should have released Mario's 1 through 3, like the original games, in mobile versions.
Yeah, like that would have made sense to me.
Yeah, like, press button, like, you turn your phone sideways, use it like a controller, release Mario 1 for free. Mm-hmm. And if you want Mario 2, 3, and let's say Mario World, or let's say you wanted to keep it to the NES, start releasing the first party titles on there for $5 a piece, the same price you pay on like
virtual console.
Or you want to do something, okay, that Nintendo Pass that you get, it's $20 a year, right? Okay, well, let's say you can pay an extra $20 a year, and you can also get it on Android or Apple Arcade.
See, honestly, if Nintendo wanted to make more money, in my opinion, they should shore up that Nintendo Online service, because the amount of games you get is okay, but I don't see a lot of super premium titles. In my opinion, if they want to grab titles people want, put Earthbound on there, put Final Fantasy 3. I know that's on the Super Nintendo Classic, and I guess they don't want to eat into that market.
Well, and it's also those are games they don't own. Well, Earthbound they do.
Yeah, but there's so many titles they could put on there, and they don't.
Yeah, if they were smart, they would do that. Or, even better, if they don't want to do it on their own, and they want to get a lucrative deal, don't go with Google, or if you do, say, hey, the Nintendo arcade stuff, it works on Stadia or something because they can control who owns it. Nobody can hack it or whatever. But if they really wanted to make some money, Apple is really trying to push that Apple Arcade. Say, by the way, if you want to play the Virtual Console, NES titles, you can get it on mobile, but only through Apple Arcade.
Yeah. I mean, that would be the smart move to make. So ultimately, I'm glad Nintendo's going to focus more on the Switch. Maybe we'll see them do more with their services, but time will ultimately tell. This next story comes courtesy of Eurogamer.net. A list of leaked domain names has set the internet tongues wagging that Rocksteady, the developer of the Batman Arkham Asylum, is working on a game centered on DC's Suicide Squad. The domains popped up yesterday on Reset Era, where fans noted they were registered by a company connected to Warner Brothers. Eurogamer understands this to be accurate. I've heard one particular phrase registered as a domain. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is a contender for the game's final title, and a good summation of what you can expect Rocksteady's next big project to be about. Other domains include Suicide Squad Game and GothamKnightsGame.com. Gotham Knights refers to an unannounced Batman game currently in development as at Batman Arkham Origins Studios, Warner Brothers Montreal. Both projects are set to be teased at Warner Brothers' upcoming DC Fandome event in August, Eurogamer understands. Expect to see a little of Gotham Knights, which while unannounced, has been continually hyped via various Court of Owls hints for more than a year. Expect to see very little of Rocksteady's Suicide Squad, which is further off from launch. Both projects are being developed for next-gen consoles. Eurogamer has contacted Warner Brothers for further comment, and of course nothing has come of that. I'm more excited for a Suicide Squad game than I am the Batman game, because I think the Batman games can take a rest for a while, although it has been 5 years since we last saw Batman Arkham Knight, which is my favorite of the three games. I got...
I've never played any of them.
Arkham Asylum, really good. Arkham City, I bought it, but I didn't play it. Or at least... I don't remember a lot of it. Arkham Knight, I went through it start to finish.
Didn't they start on the previous gen?
Yes, they started on PS3, and then there was the Arkham Knight Collection, which collected Asylum and City into one game. And then
I was looking to get I was looking to get the three of them in like a thing. Maybe they'll do that for next gen.
They have already. You can get it for like $20 right now.
All of them in the
yeah. And I think they're on Xbox Game Pass too, actually.
Oh, okay, if they're on Game Pass, I'll just do that because I ended up getting 4 months of Game Pass Ultimate for $1, so I might as well do that. But yeah, I didn't know. I was thinking like PS5. That's what I thought they were going to wait for that. I didn't know they already had the trilogy out or whatever.
Yeah, like they're really good games, and the Arkham Knight gives you the Batmobile. It's got some of the best DLC in terms of cosmetics for a game. Like you can pick, there's 30 different skins, and I think most of them are available for free, if not very, very cheap.
Wasn't one of the best versions on the Wii U or something?
It did give you more control over it. Like you can control certain gadgets via the Wii U's gamepad. The worst version was on computer, because it had so many different console issues, or had so many issues.
Didn't we cover that early on?
I think so, yeah, where they kept reporting crashes, and Warner Brothers finally threw up their hands and said, fuck it, and started offering refunds.
Yeah, to the point where they weren't originally going to be doing that, but they were in the air of maybe getting a class action lawsuit against them.
Yeah,
because it was that incomplete.
Yeah, so worth checking out your time. I recommend you, because you can beat those games in a weekend.
Okay, so yeah. Honestly, I legitimately just didn't know that it was that they had a collection of them available.
Yeah, totally worth it. My next story also talks about Batman. So this one comes courtesy of the Hollywood Reporter. This story may have been updated since we last checked it, but I'm pretty sure it's set. And evidently, Keaton is in talks to return as Batman for the Flash movie. According to this, Keaton last played the character in 1992's Batman Returns and skewed the idea of a faded superhero in the 2014 Oscar-winning movie Birdman. There may be a new Batman in town, and it's the same old Batman. Michael Keaton, who famously starred as the Cape Crusader in the Tim Burton-directed Batman movies, is in talks to reprise the character for the Warner Brothers DC movie The Flash. Ezra Miller is on board the star as Barry Allen, aka The Flash, in a feature that will be directed by filmmaker Andy Muschietti, I think his name is. But wait, there's more. If a deal makes, Keaton wouldn't just return for Flash, but possibly several other DC-oriented film projects. Sources tell The Hollywood Reporter that the role being envisioned for the veteran actor is akin to the role played by Sam Jackson as Nick Fury in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, something as a mentor or guide, even string puller. Batgirl is one of the projects in development that could fall into that category. Warner Brothers had no comment. Keaton was mainly known as a comedic actor when he nabbed the plum title role in 1989's Batman. He initially took heat from fans that didn't see him as imposing or chiseled, but the movie became a sensation and the actor reprised the character in the 1992 sequel. Afterwards, Keaton tried to distance himself from his role and even skewed it in 2014's Birdman, where he played an actor that once starred in superhero movies. That part earned him an Oscar nomination for Best Actor. Matt Reeves' The Batman, starring Robert Pattinson in the title role, is currently being looked as separate from The Flash and other DC movies. But the Flash feature project offers an intriguing pathway between franchises. The story is said to involve not just time travel, but interdimensional travel. This raises the idea more tantalizing now with the Keaton development, that you can cross from one movie universe to another. The Flash is eyeing a London start in spring 2021. And I think this is based on Flashpoint.
Did they replace the guy playing Flash now?
No, they said Ezra Miller's on board. So as far as I know,
Eve.
Yeah, he's had a questionable little bit.
Even after beating the hell out of that lady.
Yeah.
On camera, and then lying about it, saying it wasn't him when facial recognition confirmed it was him and everybody else did. And then he just basically said, fuck you, no it's not, even though he was charged with it.
Yeah, it's...
Because he's a moron.
Yeah.
So whether or not they're probably just hoping that people forget.
Yeah, I mean, it's been one of those times where, like, you do something terrible, you gotta take the punishment, and if you do something terrible, make amends for it, be sorry, if you do the crime, do the time.
Well, what would be easy? Just go, okay, you know what? I have a drinking problem. I'm going to go into rehab. I really want to apologize. I didn't just make a fool of myself.
Make it right somehow.
I was incredibly, insensitive. I'm very sorry. I'm going to get help. Bam.
Yeah, like
it's during a pandemic. How hard is it to just do a 12-step program or whatever when you can't even do anything anyway?
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean? This is the best time to come clean, and instead he doubles down. He's like, no.
Yeah, like this is the best time to work on self-improvement, and I hope for his sake he does, because obviously being a better person is the goal of it should be the best goal at the end of the day for everybody.
Absolutely.
So I'm looking forward to the Flash movie. I mean, if it is based on Flashpoint and interdimensional travel, because I think DC's starting to figure out, don't be the MCU. You can't.
Yeah.
But if you do Elseworld stuff and have a loose continuity, like the DC animated stuff,
you really you haven't kept up with the CW shows. His dimension was shown in the crossover event.
I saw him briefly show up at the end of the Flash thing.
And
I watched it.
I'm wondering if that is tied into that. This is how they're going to bridge it into the movies, because they're releasing this crossover from this year as a separate disc that you can get. They're bundling it with the Legends of Tomorrow Blu-ray set, but it's designed, it looks like, in such a way that they can release it as a separate disc later on. So I'm wondering if that was testing the waters to see if they could do it, because they had always said they tried to keep their TV and movie universe separate, but in that special, or in that crossover, they already had the Batman 89 world in there.
Yeah,
they show it getting destroyed and all this, and they even get actors to come back from it. Every property that they had ever done, people showed up in it. Even to the point of filming a Batman world where Kevin Conroy is Batman. So they found a way to even get the cartoon worlds in there. Live action version, right? But so they've done it, and then that was as much as it was funny seeing the nostalgic stuff, people were really surprised that the Flash crosses over. He goes into another dimension, and it's the movie, like the current movieverse. So it's been done now. So maybe that was just sort of a tease.
Yeah, I mean, if DC can navigate these next these next few movies rather successfully, I think they'll finally have their footing. So we will look forward to see what happens with that. So this next story, evidently, it's one quick headline, but I know a chunk about it because I've been following the story all week. So Mixer employees were unaware of Mixer being shut down and learned at the same time as the public. I'm following a thread on Reset Era, and one of the people who worked at Mixer says, "We didn't know this was coming. We found out right before you did." And this was a program manager, on-camera host, and Xbox gaming and disability community lead, if I'm reading this correct. But yeah, like, it was a mess, to say the least, considering Mixer got bought by Microsoft, or I think it used to be called Beam, I think, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
And then they had this huge push for it. They tried to integrate, like, its video technology is really, really good. And it tried to make all these leaps for accessibility. It tried to change how subs and emotes and everything else was done to compete with Twitch, to compete with Microsoft, or to compete with Facebook gaming, to compete with YouTube gaming. And it just never went anywhere.
The most impressive thing with it was not this year, but last year when they did the announcement for the Xbox and all, or the Xbox press conference for E3.
Mm-hmm.
It was broadcast at 4K 60 FPS when it was still, like, YouTube had started doing that. Some people were doing that, but it was the bit rate was surprising. Like, it was like 20 megabit or more, or 20 megabyte. It was like 100 megabit. It was using, and it even gave you a warning. This will use a lot of data if you want to use this experimental mode to watch. So I went, okay, and I clicked it, and like, we were getting Blu-ray quality picture.
Yeah,
through it. It was just for that event, and I think one other thing they did. It was like a Forza championship thing, and then we never saw that again. They just didn't do that tech. Like, it was quite clear they wanted to show that, hey, we can actually broadcast on Mixer at higher quality than your 4K satellite or cable provider can give you, and they proved it could be done. You had to have a really fast internet connection. You also had to make sure you had unlimited bandwidth, obviously, because I think watching that 2-hour press conference was like 200 or 300 gigs.
Yeah, like,
but again, it was there. And then this year, when I tried to watch certain things, I was like, the quality wasn't. It was there, but it was like Twitch was about the same quality. I'm like, wow, they lowered the quality, and so I was wondering why they hadn't really started pushing that. And it was obvious it was probably costing them too much money.
Now, one of the things that I saw this report earlier this year, I want to say back in March and April, they were talking about streaming sites growth stats year over year, and the top being Twitch, then I think it was YouTube, then it was Facebook, and then it was Mixer. And I remember this number very, very clearly. Mixer's growth was 0.02%.
Yeah, they whoever they signed and whoever was watching is all that was watching.
Yeah, like, literally, you were lucky. I mean, a good stream for Mixer is if you had double digits, maybe triple. Some people on there had tens of thousands of subs. I mean, obviously, the big get was Ninja and Shroud.
But they signed them for millions of dollars, and they got no viewers.
Yeah, the audience just didn't translate. And now I'm going to read a second part of this story, and then we'll kind of talk about it a little bit more. Speaking of Ninja and Shroud. So Ninja and Shroud reportedly received tens of millions due to Mixer's closure. Streamers said to have rejected insane offers to move to Facebook gaming. That's part of this. When Mixer closed down, Facebook gaming is taking that. But that also means if you are a streamer on Mixer, your subs, everything does not translate over to Facebook gaming, but your contracts will be honored with a one-time signing bonus of, I think, approximately $2,500. But I'll get to that. So, major streamers Ninja and Shroud reportedly received payouts in the tens of millions following Microsoft's decision to close Mixer and release them from their exclusivity contracts. The pair, real names Tyler Blevins and Michael Glisiek, I can't pronounce it, are also said to have turned down insane offers to move to Facebook Gaming, which is where Mixer's members and sites will be migrated to next month. This, according to esports consultant Rod Breslow, who cited sources claiming Facebook offered an insane at almost double for the original Mixer contracts of Ninja and Shroud, but loaded Ninja Shroud said no and forced Mixer to buy them out. Ninja made in the region of $30 million. Shroud made $10 million from Mixer buying out their contracts, the industry insider said. Microsoft confirmed to Business Insider that both streamers are now free agents and had received their full payout before leaving Mixers. The pair are now free to move to any platform of their choice, and on Monday, both released statements saying they were considering their next steps. From July 22nd, all Mixer sites apps will be redirected to Facebook's Facebook Gaming. Mixer partners will be granted partner status with Facebook Gaming, and the platform will honor and match all existing partner agreements as closely as possible, according to Microsoft. In a statement published on Microsoft's or on the Xbox website, head Phil Spencer said the service had failed to grow in line with its expectations. It became clear that the time needed to grow our own live streaming community to scale was out of measure with the vision and the experiences we want to deliver to gamers now. So we've decided to close the operations side of Mixer and help the community transition to a new platform. As I mentioned, Mixer was launched by Microsoft as Beam in 2016 and then later rebranded. Microsoft reportedly paid in the region of $50 million to lure Tyler Ninja Blevins from Twitch to Mixer in August 2019. Signing Ninja, who had 14 million followers on Twitch, marked a huge coup for the platform as it attempted to compete with streaming giants Twitch and YouTube. Commenting on Monday's closure news, Ninja tweeted, "I love my community and what we built together on Mixer. I have some decisions to make and will be thinking about you as I make them." Shroud added, "I appreciate the Mixer community and everything I've been able to do on the platform. I love you guys and I'm figuring out my next steps." Oof.
Now, if anybody's wondering why they wouldn't want to take more money going somewhere else, these people were expecting a multi-year contract to be paid out. They're actually lucky that their contracts are being honored, depending on how it was worded. They obviously had it worded in their contracts that they got paid no matter what happened. But their fear now would be, okay, well, they're going to offer me more money than my original contract to go here. Who's to say in 1 year Facebook doesn't shut it down?
Yep.
And then give them nothing, because Facebook is known to be evil when it comes to how they handle contracts and disputes, how they treat their employees. Microsoft honors their contracts and honors it. Like there's no, even though you might say, oh, Facebook's just as big as Microsoft. No, they're not. And they're not even close. Like, even though Microsoft might have,
nobody goes to Facebook Gaming.
Yeah. And Microsoft might have less money technically, like in the bank. Microsoft's assets are so huge that they're so ingrained worldwide, they have to honor all their contracts. There was no issue. Like they were never going to go, there's never going to be a risk of Microsoft ceasing to exist. All it takes with Facebook is some serious, shit where we've already seen the scandals they've had. Well, if it were to come out and say, oh, they rigged certain elections, or they did this, or they
sold data to the Russians or something.
Yeah. And it turns out it came from, their headquarters. They're done. And people will find another social network to move to, or it could tank their shares to the point where they can't pay out these contracts, and they don't want to have to risk uprooting again within a year. So the only two choices for them really are going to be, do I go to YouTube, where there's no way they're going to shut down YouTube? They may restructure their payment agreements for certain things, but YouTube's not going away. It just isn't. Or do we go to Twitch, which Amazon will not give up, because Amazon is in like a blood feud with YouTube. So there's the two and these people already had an audience there.
Yeah.
So their choice that they got, it's like, okay, I'll take less money. What's in your mind? What is the difference between, taking half of the millions and all of the millions? It's millions.
I mean, and Ninja sits in a unique position because his audience will come back to Twitch because, in my opinion, simple reasons: easy to find, easy to sub, and it's just there.
And his leverage too is, even if you're like, well, they're going to be pissed at him because he left the first time. No, that was just a business deal.
They're going to be glad that he's back.
And he might even do something. He's like, well, I'm on the paycheck. I'm getting a payroll from Microsoft. They're paying me out a one-time thing of, X tens of millions. He could go to Twitch and go, I know you don't want to give me the contract I had there. How about you give me, for a 5-year deal, give me 10 million total, but I get total creative control on this and I get profit sharing. Or he could even do that. He could go, give me a nominal fee and I want profit sharing based on all of your views from everything. He has the clout to do that.
He really does.
He could say, okay, give me nothing, but I want to take 1% on the back end of what you make.
Now, here's something that sucks for anybody who built their community on Mixer. I've known some Mixer streamers. One of my favorite YouTubers, Drifter, who is a COD guy, he was offered to go to Facebook Gaming. He used to be on Twitch, but Mixer offered him a contract for exclusivity, and he took it. And when Mixer closed, he was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he had these problems with Twitch and YouTube. And thankfully, he got his partner status back at Twitch, and he's streaming there full time. But he's like, other people are not going to be as lucky because people will have to rebuild their communities on Facebook Gaming from scratch. That means followers, subscriptions, everything. You're starting from zero. That's brutal. And not all these contracts. They say they'll be granted partner status. They'll honor the contracts as quote unquote best they can. I have a feeling a lot of people on Mixer or formerly Mixer are going to get fucked.
And it's not like you think where your name means something. Ninja's name means something, but it didn't mean that much because take a look. He ended up getting no new viewers for Mixer.
Yeah, I think his average stream was maybe 2,000, maybe, and that's nothing compared to what
in the grand scheme of things. While you could say, okay, they must have lost viewers somewhere else to gain them for him, he essentially didn't even break even. He made them $0. He made Microsoft lose millions of dollars going there. So opening up a Twitch, if he goes there, yeah. If he went to YouTube, he would have the same problem. So he's probably just going to Twitch.
Well, yeah.
With his other people, we're in the same boat. Like we've been podcasting for years, but had we tried to start a podcast brand new from scratch now, on a new feed, it would mean nothing because it's crowded now. When Ninja and these guys started in their field, there was very few people doing it.
Yeah, I mean, Ninja has brand recognition. He's got industry recognition.
Well, here's the thing, too. When he came into it, he was able to get the name Ninja.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, try now. Look at how many This Week in Geeks have popped up since us.
Yeah.
Right? They try to copycat. It happens. So if you're somebody, who wasn't at that level and then try to come in, and start fresh, even though you spent, let's say, 5 years building yourself up, or you spent a couple of years on Mixer building yourself up, let's say, even you're like a very small person, you got like 1,000 followers. If you got like 1,000, those 1,000 people are pretty dedicated. They'll probably follow you. But if you're somebody who just hit the next level and you're at like 10 to 20 or 50,000 followers, you may never get them again.
Yeah, like it's going to be a rough transition.
Yeah. It's only going to help the people that are very low and very high on the totem pole.
So we will be following to see what happens next with this. But we're going to follow up to a story we kind of talked around last week. We talked about, obviously, with the big social changes happening in the entertainment industry, how it will affect police shows. And we already have the first show that's going to change and address it. So according to tvline.com, Brooklyn Nine-Nine to scrap all episodes written for season 8. Terry Crews says we have to start over. So Brooklyn Nine-Nine is going back to the drawing board in light of the recent nationwide protests against police violence. The NBC cop comedy is already set to return for an 8th season, but cast member Terry Crews told Access Daily that the writers are scrapping all the episodes they've written for next season and are starting from scratch. Our showrunner, Dan Gore, they had 4 episodes all ready to go, and they just threw them in the trash, Crews said. We have to start over. Right now, we don't know which direction it's going to go. TV Line has reached out for NBC for comment. The cast has been talking about how to address the issues of systemic racism and police brutality in the upcoming seasons as well. Crews added, we've had a lot of somber talks about it and deep conversations. We hope through this we're going to make something that will truly be groundbreaking this year. We have an opportunity and we plan to use it in the best possible way. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, starring Andy Samberg as a goofy NYPD detective, typically focuses on the lighter side of police work, but it has tackled serious topics in the past, such including a season 4 episode that saw Cruz's character get racially profiled by a white cop while off duty in his own neighborhood. Earlier this month, Cast and Gore made a $100,000 donation to the National Bail Fund Network. Started that they condemn the murder of George Floyd and support the many people who are protesting police brutality nationwide. And we knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, we knew it was only going to be one of three things. Either they scrap all their episodes, which was sort of, we didn't think that was going to be the thing, though, initially. Mm-hmm. We thought that it was either going to be they cancel shows, or a show like this, they would do a thing where they come out in front of the camera and do a discussion before the episode starts for the first episode. And they may still do that, but it is smart. It is a ratings earner. It also is a show that doesn't glorify police. It's a workplace comedy that happens to take place with police officers.
It's a show that I think if any of the modern police shows can build goodwill, it might be able to do it because it is a comedy.
Yeah.
A show that's going to have a lot harder time pulling this off. The two ones off the top of my head, Law and Order, SVU, and Blue Bloods.
Well, Blue Bloods will have the hardest time because it's so ingrained with the New York police force. Mm-hmm. It's a good show, but it's probably going to have it's going to have some issues. It is also the highest rated show on their network, not with the young demographic, but with CBS's, adult/older people. Mm-hmm. It is the highest rated show on Friday nights. They can't just cancel it or risk losing $100 or $200 million in ad revenue.
I would like to see what the conversations are going on in those writers' rooms, because I know I saw a tweet and it referenced an interview, a podcast interview with like one of the writers, I think Law and Order. Not 100% sure of that, but they said maybe it's time to pack it in, and I don't think they're going to. My prediction, and I think I said this last week too, I think you're going to see a lot of the police shows held off till mid-season. You're going to see a lot of rewrites. They'll probably do what you said, come out in front of the camera, but I would predict a lot of the Law and Order episodes are getting scrapped right now.
You'll want to keep an eye for Law and Order. Mariska Hargitay has been on there since day one, but you'll want to keep an eye on what Ice-T does.
Yeah, because he's very active on Twitter right now.
He's very active on Twitter, very outspoken. He's been with the show since season 2. And he's somebody who holds a fair amount of respect in the industry there, also being a very politically based, not so much in his rap work, but in his heavy metal work, which is still funny to say that. Yes, he's one of the original gangster rappers, and yes, he basically helped invent rap metal. His group Body Count has had very politically active stuff since like the Rodney King stuff in the 90s. He the cop killer song as a way of protesting what was going on. He's very politically motivated and charged and very well read, very well spoken. They're probably going to use him as a bridge, and he will not. He'll flat out refuse if they're like, you need to go out there and calm things down. He would be the first person to say, well, what are you doing about it?
Yeah, exactly. So I trust Ice-T.
He'll likely come out. He'll be the spokesperson for whatever happens to the show. So keep an eye out on that.
Yeah. So we will.
And then the other ones, like we talked about, like the Chicago PD is tied in with the Chicago shows. The show is already about moral ambiguity with police force, so it wasn't glorifying police to begin with. So
my guess is if any show would end up on the chopping block, it might be that one.
Maybe, yeah. It is one of the bigger earners, and they can fold that in where like that show gets canceled, but some of those characters might still end up on the other Chicago shows because they're all intertwined into one big series, right? So you could do that. And the other one to worry about is on ABC, which is the Rookie.
Yeah.
But it has serious moments, but it also has some lighthearted moments. That might get pushed mid-season or summer or something, but I don't know how they're going to handle it. You're right. Brooklyn is probably the easiest one to ease the tensions of a lot of people. So that might premiere
plus having the black police chief or captain and Terry Crews really helps.
Well, it's a black gay captain.
Yeah.
And then Terry Crews, who is a big family man. and it's a fairly diverse cast as is, and they also have probably some of the sharpest writing of any show on TV. I could see them coming out and doing something and saying something.
I really hope so. So we will find out come the fall television season. We will definitely be talking about it as time goes on. Moving on to our next entertainment-based story. This one comes courtesy of Entertainment Weekly. It's been 36 years since the original Ghostbusters film dominated the box office, and when the long-awaited Ghostbusters Afterlife finally drops in 2021, which was supposed to be released in like 2 weeks, it'll be without Harold Ramis, who died in 2014. But he will not be forgotten, according to Dan Aykroyd, who recounted what it was like to shoot the third Ghostbusters film without his former writing partner and friend. To have that formation without the man standing right there on the line with us was a pretty serious adjustment, Aykroyd tells EW, exclusively while promoting his new Travel Channel series, Hotel Paranormal, on Wednesday. He will be very well represented.
Sorry, he's still doing that stuff?
Yep, he does whatever. He will be very well represented in the new film. I can tell you that. He's very honorably represented. The veteran actor who became a star while working on Saturday Night Live during its first 4 seasons also embraced the franchise's future in the hands of Jason Reitman, the son of Ivan Reitman, the original director of Ghostbusters 1 and 2. He's passing the DNA of the first 2 movies directly to the new generation, he says of the younger Reitman. It's just a lot of fun to see these terrific young actors slinging the old Cadillac around, having the equipment in their hands. The story that develops from that is scary, funny, and heartfelt, and also funny. It feeds into the possibility of more follow-ups with this group and with others who want to join. He added, everyone can be a Ghostbuster. Just start out by studying science and physics. Every county in the United States has a paranormal society, and I don't think before Ghostbusters that was true. No one back then knew what ectoplasm was before Ghostbusters. We introduced that term to millions of people around the world, where it was just a standard part of the vernacular in research, which my family has been into for generations. We've turned it into a joke into the film, and I think that's okay with everyone on the other side. Hotel Paranormal premieres on July 11th via the Travel Channel. I'm looking forward to this because I think it's pretty heavily implied in the trailers that the farmhouse they go to belonged to Egon.
Yeah, they mentioned Grandpa's something or other in the trailer.
Yeah, and when you look in the bottom of the farmhouse, they find old uniforms, and for just a couple of frames, you see Spengler on the side. And Blair's torturing cats right now.
Don't say it like that.
Well, she keeps picking up cats, and they keep crying, so...
Well, I mean, yeah, okay.
Yes, it's because
you made it sound like she was terrible. Like, what's she doing? She's throwing him in a bag against a tree.
Yeah, we are
horrible.
We are babysitting.
Yeah,
we are babysitting my sister-in-law's cats, and Ayla and Dr. Wiley are not appreciative of their niece and nephew.
Well, what you're saying is Dr. Wiley is indifferent, and Ayla has decided to not murder them so far. She's decided to be okay.
Yeah. Blair, why don't you take her into the bedroom? Because he's fussing. Exactly. I love you, but show on air right now, please. Moving on to my next story.
You know what? It's not the best time that we've been interrupted. The best time we were interrupted is when the house was on fire.
Yeah, that's true.
Blair, what's with the noise? Turn off the alarm. I'd like to take care of the fire first. There's a fire. That's when you first moved there.
That's right. All right. This next story comes courtesy of superherohype.com. Chad Strakowski or Stowski, I can't pronounce it. Anyway, he offers an update on the Highlander reboot. A Highlander remake has been in development for well over a decade, but Chad might be the filmmaker to finally get it off the ground. The filmmaker will mark Strakowski's first non-John Wick project since he made his directorial debut with that series entry in 2014. While discussing film, he gave an update on its progress. It's almost hard to believe that Strahelski, I can't pronounce it, whatever, the John Wick guy, first came aboard Highlander in late 2016. Most directors would probably jump ship after 4 years of delays, but the filmmaker remains committed to seeing the film all the way through to the finish line. Hollywood remains in a state of flux due to the coronavirus pandemic. Regardless, he insists that his crew has used their time in isolation to make significant strides in the upcoming reboot. We're in heavy development mode on Highlander, he says, tweaking scripts, writing, conceptualizing sequences, how we're going to do everything. We probably have a lot more in-person kind of things, but it hasn't slowed down our development process at all. Some fans might know that he did the stunt work before trying his hand behind the camera. He's perhaps most famously on the Matrix franchise. He also lent his action expertise to a number of superhero movies over the years, including Spider-Man 2, X-Men Origins Wolverine, Captain America Civil War. With a resume like this, one might think it's only a matter of time before he directs his own comic book adaptation. But according to him, this isn't likely because he prefers to make films with heroes that are more off-center. What I guess I'm saying is I think I'm a better fan of superhero movies than I would ever be a director of one, he explains. So I'm going to stay in the outer periphery of that, look at the projects in the past. I love John Wick. Is that a kind of superhero? Yeah, in a hyper way, absolutely. You look at Highlander, yeah, that's a different kind of thing. It's a bit more grounded, but yes, you could see the hero in that. If you look after the other projects I'm attached to, they all have heroes in them, just not with capes and kryptonite. I think this will be really cool. I've been looking forward for this. I think Ryan Reynolds was attached for quite some time.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think it's about that
wasn't
time.
Gerard Butler or somebody at one point too?
I think so. Like, there's been a number of different things. I remember at one point there was an Xbox 360 and PS3 game developed for Highlander. They showed off a trailer. I think Ubisoft was developing it for a long time. And then just one day it just got, like, Thanos snapped. So I'm looking forward to this if they manage to pull it off. I mean, it would be nice if they honor the Queen soundtrack. Don't see it happening. Maybe the opening theme song with Princes of the Universe.
Yeah, well, we would get Princes of the Universe, and you'd probably get
Give Me the Prize, maybe.
No, it'd be Who Wants to Live Forever.
Yeah, which would be great. I mean, I'd love to hear a modern update on that one.
They wouldn't use Friends Will Be Friends or like some of the other ones that are a little cheesier. They wouldn't use any of the songs that were centered around having clips from the movie in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, give me a prize, maybe. It would be Princes of the Universe,
maybe.
Because I mean, they even used a cover version of that for that terrible Highlander the Source movie. So that it's so intertwined. Like, that song was written for the movie series.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have that. I just would feel bad if they don't use the original, or if they are going to use a cover version, have Queen do it with whomever is currently singing with them.
Yeah.
Don't, but again, it's still blasphemous. You don't replace Freddie. But if you are going to do it that way. Don't go with the cheap knockoff they used for the sci-fi TV movie. And Who Wants to Live Forever is also very intertwined with it. So those two would probably be the best. And
here's the thing.
I'm just trying to think of what do they want to tell the same story again? Because I mean, it was done on TV and done on movies and redone in movies when they decided to change canon multiple times.
It'll change for sure, but it'll still be the story of Connor McLeod. It'll still be the Kurgan as the bad guy, but I bet you they'll get rid of Ramirez, who was a Scottishman pretending to be Egyptian. So that'll change.
It was supposed. It was okay. What it ended up being was a Scotsman portraying an Egyptian
who was a Spaniard,
who had then decided to become portray a Spaniard. Whereas the star of the movie was a French American pretending to be a Scotsman.
Yeah.
Which I mean is fine. I mean, Connery gets a pass at everything because I'm a Russian submarine captain. Like, he can be anything, right? So here's a question: would you get, instead of Ramirez, would you get the new trainer? Would you get it to be the guy who played the Kurgan to play the new
Clancy Brown? Yeah,
or does he play the father that rejects him?
I'd be okay with that. I mean, if you had Clancy Brown come back in a live action role, not just a cameo, have him be a father or a mentor or something.
Have him be the father that when they're fighting, on the fields, and they all the young men end up dying, and then he comes back and he's the father that decides to burn him as a heretic.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because then he could still have his wild, like, he's in real life, he can grow, he can get like the wild hair. He has the look still. He could play that sort of an elder within the clan.
I'd also be okay cameo only with Christopher Lambert. I'd be all right with that.
Have him play as another Highlander that gets killed. Like, have him play the one at the very beginning of the movie that gets killed.
Yeah, that'd be great. Like, I can't remember what the guy was called, Castigan or something like that, and he's fighting in the underground. Yeah, that'd be great.
So he'd be he'd be the other side of it.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I mean, ultimately, I love Highlander. It's one of my favorite film franchises. I love the TV show. I'd be happy to see this.
Here's a question: should they get Adrian Paul in it?
If he's willing to come back and do something, I think that'd be great. And if they could dedicate this movie to the actor that played Richie Ryan, who passed away last year,
yeah,
I think that'd be great.
Here's the thing: I would like them to almost because the TV show actually had a better story because they had more time to flesh it out with the Watchers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get Jim Byrne in there?
I would get him and
as a Watcher.
I don't think you could introduce that concept in a 2-hour movie.
Or do you switch it where the Watchers are a government organization where they've known about this?
Maybe. I'd like to see them. I don't know. I'd primarily want to see it be the Kurgan versus the Highlander primarily.
Well, if you're setting it in modern day and we're not doing a remake where it's set in the 80s, which is probably what they would be doing.
Yeah.
Why don't you make the Watchers
a hacker group like Anonymous?
Like Anonymous. They're a dark web group that's decided that they've collectively started seeing these things and they've been monitoring them for years.
That's a pretty good update.
So that's how you could put the Watchers in. Like, it's just literally the Watchers is a hashtag, the Watchers.
Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Hopefully we'll find out more as the year goes on. We'll stay tuned for updates. This next story comes courtesy of slashfilm.com. Watch out for flying cows because a Twister reboot is officially in the works. Universal is in talks with Joseph Kosinski, the filmmaker behind Tron Legacy, and the upcoming Top Gun Maverick to direct a reboot of the 1996 storm-chasing blockbuster that starred Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt. At the time, the film was hailed for its advanced visual effects, so it makes a certain amount of sense that Kosinski, a filmmaker known for his visual effects work, is in discussions to tackle the reboot. Variety reports that Kosinski is in talks to direct the Twister reboot, and the outlet has specifically calls it a reboot, not a sequel or a remake. I have to assume that means this new story will take place in the same world as the original movie. No plot details were revealed about this new version, and no writer has been hired yet. But if it is a separate story in that universe, it seems reasonable it could include a cameo from Helen Hunt's Dr. Joe Harding, as Bill Paxton died in 2017. And when he passed away, real-life storm chasers paid tribute to him by using a GPS to spell out his initials in America's Tornado Alley. If they're looking to include Paxton in the movie somehow, I'd love to see the filmmakers apply the real-world tribute as an in-world thing that happened to Paxton's character.
That would be nice. Part of me goes... Oh, the terrible part of me would be like, how about you start the movie with a stunt double where they CGI his face and he gets sucked into a tornado, and that's how it starts.
Yeah, I really doubt that.
You say that, I guess it's not being made by the Sci-Fi channels. Probably not. There's a bunch of other things where they talk about just what the other filmmakers have been involved with. I think this is great personally, especially with the advances in visual FX that have been made, obviously, in the last decade. I'm perfectly fine with this. Storm chasing has come a long way since 1996. The technology's never been better. We've never been safer. Because I think Doppler radar was still a fairly new thing back then. Now that we can have essentially supercomputers in like our pockets. Well, cellular technology was like, car phones have been out since way back since the 50s, but like cellular car phones had only been out since the mid 80s, and in the mid 90s, remember the flip phone wasn't even a thing yet. People still had the old school,
the bricks,
the bricks, or I think the candy phones had just started coming out, the candy bar ones. So, we weren't even at, I think 2G was like new, if that even existed. So we weren't at the point where most consumer level tech had GPSs built in. So it was sort of high tech stuff then, but within about 3 years, that movie was already dated. Now we're at a point where it's like, oh, they could track it on a global scale almost immediately. I wonder if in the movie they're going to show how fast Twitter moves, like if that's how they're going to be tracking things.
I wonder if the movie will, I mean, obviously I would consider it an environmental movie because they could talk about climate change in this, because climate change is very much tied into how intense storm seasons are. I mean, especially, this week, one story we didn't talk about this week is parts of the US are covered in a haze right now because of a giant sandstorm that happened over the Sahara Desert. Now, it's going to dissipate before it gets to Canada. We won't see it.
Yeah.
But it's already affecting weather, and there's more extreme weather happening each and every year.
A week and a half ago, Alberta had a hailstorm that we're not talking golf ball sized hail. We're talking tennis ball sized. They were saying 10 centimeters in diameter. It's a third of a foot thick.
And if that hits you, you're dead.
I had a friend who his truck is totaled. His roof is totaled. It's all, write-offs. They have to get insurance covering it. But the bigger news out of that is it destroyed all of Canada's canola oil fields. So we're going to have a canola oil shortage to the point where canola oil is going to go from being like, $3 for 3 liters to like 15 or more. So vegetable oil is going to have to, compensate for it. But it was enough to completely devastate our entire year's crops in one day of storm. And they said it sounded like machine guns and mortar shells. Because we're talking hail the size of your fist closed. Yeah. Showering from the sky. And that's never happened there before.
Like, it's going to be...
So it's not global warming, because people always get pissed at that. It's climate change. Things are changing. The patterns are changing to something we're not used to.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you could work that in there. And could you imagine a tornado carrying those hail and then flinging them in all directions?
Oh yeah, like it's the special effects and what they can accomplish. Because like one example of this, like you saw the movie, unfortunately, Geostorm a couple years ago, but there was also 2012 that
anything
came out.
That Roland Emmerich puts out.
Yeah, basically anything like that. Like there was a sequence in one of, I think it was The Day After Tomorrow.
Which I liked, by the way. That was a good movie.
So did I. But I think it's The Day After Tomorrow, or maybe it was 2012, where they showed basketball size hail in like Tokyo or China or something. That's surprisingly devastating. So yikes.
Because a basketball is bigger than a cannonball.
Yeah, like just it was huge. But either way, it's going to be interesting to see when this happens. I'm looking forward to it. I know Blair will want to be there opening night, so we'll look forward to that. Speaking of this, and this will be our last story for the Nerd News this week. This one comes courtesy, once again, of EW.com. Elizabeth Banks is going to be starring as Miss Frizzle in the Magic School Bus. The new movie will be a live-action hybrid based on the beloved kids' books and the animated series. Seatbelts, everyone. Elizabeth Banks will take the wheel of the Magic School Bus in a new live-action hybrid movie. Banks, who will appear among the star-studded cast of FX's Hulu's Miss America and in her directorial debut on Charlie's Angels, will star as zany elementary school teacher Miss Frizzle, EW has learned. The character is based on the beloved children's books from Scholastic and the animated series. The actress will also produce the new movie through her Brownstone Pictures banner for Universal Pictures. Scholastic Entertainment, which is also in the works for Animorphs, which we talked about last week, a Goosebumps TV series, and Clifford the Big Red Dog is also developing the project with Mark Platt Productions. Lily Tomlin famously voiced Frizz in the animated series, which saw the character take her class on extraordinary adventures on her school bus that magically transforms into various shapes and sizes. Sometimes they shrunk down to explore the inside of the human body. Sometimes they swam in the ocean alongside the creatures of the deep. And sometimes they rocketed off to outer space to learn about the galaxy. You never knew where you were going to go with the Frizz. More recently, Kate McKinnon, Saturday Night Live, took on the voice role of Miss Frizzle in Sisters Fiona for the Magic School Bus Rides Again, an animated sequel that premiered on Netflix back in 2017. We are delighted to bring to life the iconic Miss Frizzle and her zest for knowledge and adventure in a fresh new way that inspires the next generation of kids to explore science and supports the dedicated teachers who help make science real and accessible for young learners everywhere. Scholastic Entertainment and Chief Strategy Officer Lowell Lucis said in a statement, "We're also extremely excited to be working with such top-tier partners as Elizabeth Banks, Mark Platt Productions, Brownstone Productions, Universal Pictures, and all the amazing talent assembled for the noteworthy feature films. Banks is also tasked to star and direct The Invisible Woman for Universal based on her own concept." this is very cool. I'm really looking forward to this.
And it's not the first time she's stepped into
A
like
kids movie.
or a classic, cult character. She played Rita Repulsa in the Power Rangers movie.
Yeah, and she was fantastic in that.
She was probably the best part of the movie. She fully embraced the zaniness of it.
Yeah, I really liked her. I liked Bill Hader as Alpha, and I think his name is C.J. Cryer. I think the guy that played Billy the Blue Ranger. Really liked him.
Yeah, as far as like you think of her as being either a more serious actor or being in major motion pictures, and then when you remember she was asked why would you take this role, and she said why not? I get to have fun, and she went like full hamming it up.
Oh yeah, I mean the only misstep I think she's made in the last little bit is she did an interview for Charlie's Angels, and she blamed that movie bombing on the Avengers.
She did that, and she blamed it on men not bigoted men not being willing to see strong female characters in movies without really looking at the demographics of why people weren't seeing it. People didn't want to see it not because it was a woman directed a movie and or that sort of thing that she was trying to say. They didn't want to see it for two reasons. One, it was bad timing when it came out.
Yeah.
And two, it was a bad movie.
I mean,
it was very poorly received by critics, and that was not just men critics; it was critics around said that it was a very mediocre film. And some people enjoyed it, and it to each their own. That you're going to enjoy it or you're not going to enjoy it. I still haven't seen it, but I'm going to give it a shot.
Yeah, same here. I want to see it because I want to see. Truth be told, I want to see Kristen Stewart. I'm really curious to see how far she's come.
And that's the thing too. I think they marketed her as being in it, and she's kind of box office poison to a certain group of people that think she can't act.
Yeah, because you see a movie like Underwater, and she can do amazing things. So and she's going past the Twilight crap of her early career.
She's been so bland and stuff in her beginning of her career. She was such a bland actress that I feel that it has bled over into the work she's done recently. People just aren't willing to give it a shot.
Well, that's the same reason people don't give Robert Pattinson a shot, because they assume he sparkles. I'm like, have you seen The Lighthouse?
No. Have you seen that the very first project he did after doing those movies where he showed up in 2 Cronenberg films?
Yeah, like
so he went hardcore. He's like, what's the biggest left turn I can make? Almost impossible to film Cronenberg movie with really weird sadistic sexual stuff in there that is not what the girls wanted him to be in.
Yeah, so
he's like, why not? Because he goes, I want to be an actor. I'm not in this to be, what
rich.
You think I am.
Yeah, like I'm happy Banks will do this. If anybody can pull off the Miss Frizzle thing, I think it's going to be her. I really do.
She has the personality for it.
The energy.
She has the energy. Reading about but people are saying on Reddit they're so psyched for her, and then and of course everybody's like, oh my god, what's she going to play next? And then they're like trying to list off all these different characters that she could play, and it's interesting that for the most part when you cast a movie like this, you go, oh great, another one of these movies. I have not heard anybody say anything bad about doing a Magic School Bus movie.
Yeah.
You usually hear people complaining, and I think they're waiting to see what the trailer looks like for once.
Because I think kids' movies are getting better. Like, one of my favorite movies I saw last year was Dora the Explorer. That was a lot of fun. I liked the John Cena movie, Playing with Fire. It depends on how you write it, if you get the right cast with it. I mean, that can be said for like any movie. And child actors have clearly come a long way since Little Giants and all that from the 90s.
And imagine the double feature you might get at your local art house theater, where it's like
Dora and this back to back.
No. I was thinking it's like, hey, let's do a double feature at your local art house cinema for starting at 10 p.m. and it's Magic School Bus followed by Zach and Miri Make a Porno, because she's done wildly different roles.
That's true. Yeah, I forgot about
Slither.
That.
She was in Slither, and people forget she was in Spider-Man.
Who was she in Spider-Man?
Betty Brant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so she did, and 40-year-old virgin. She's the one that wants them in the hot tub.
Oh dear.
So she started her career doing
whatever she wanted,
sex comedies, different things, and then she does like Spider-Man. She did at the same time, so she was doing family movies at the same time that she did more serious things. She played Laura Bush in W. Like she's in Hunger Games is probably more recent stuff that she's done.
Mm-hmm.
But she still does kids movies. She does the Lego movie. She plays Wildside.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
So I mean, and she's in Magic Mike. Like, so she does everything all over the place. So this wasn't a big surprise to me. I think it's with her there. She has a pretty discerning eye for what roles
Quality is.
For at least for her would be good. And she's like, I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So that's going to conclude this edition of the Nerd News Network. So we're going to take a break and we're going to check out a new expansion for the latest Pokemon game. And this is Alex's review of that new Pokemon DLC.
I wanted to get this review out earlier, but it turns out my save file for my initial playthrough of Pokemon Sword went kaputskis. So I had to start from the beginning, which turned out to not be so bad. So, yes, I'm talking about the Isle of Armor as part of the expansion pass for Pokemon. Nintendo sent over an expansion pass code because I didn't have that initially. And they said, hey, would you like to check that out? And I said, yes, I would. And playing through it, I went, okay, the first time I played the standard way and worked my way through slowly. This time I went, how can I break the game to get to the end as fast as possible? And it turns out the easy way to do that, well, first, okay, I found out you can go to the island pretty much right away after you leave your little hometown, and you don't even have to have like a badge or anything to do it. And there's basically 50% of it you can do right there, and then the rest is locked away till endgame stuff or postgame stuff. But I went, how can I get to the end of the game as fast as possible? It turns out, go to the first place you can fish, pick up a Magikarp, use your starter Pokemon, and try to beat one of the Dynamax ones. Did that, fed a bunch, maybe 2 or 3 times I did that, then fed the experience boosters to the Magikarp, got myself a Gyarados, and nuked the game, completely destroyed it. I didn't lose a Pokemon battle or even lose. I maybe died once or had Pokemon. I had Gyarados faint, I think, twice, and that was post game, or doing some of the battle tower stuff at the end. But I was able to completely cruise control the game, which is kind of. I mean, I know I didn't play it the way you're supposed to, but I play it the way Alex plays games, and that is to find a weakness, exploit it, and destroy it, and beat it as fast as possible, and all in 1 or 2 play sessions. So yes, in 2 days I beat the game, 25 hours, 30 hours, whatever, with all the expansion stuff, which is, yeah, I do that, I know. So, enjoyed it, and then, I'll say the first half of the expansion, you go to the island from your train, they pick you up and fly you over. You meet your new rival, which everybody's already heard about that and seen videos. You then see a bunch of Pokemon that you can't get in the main game. You meet up at a dojo. You do some fetch quests to get your new Pokemon. You show them the island. Make them love you, and then you can go through doing some more fetch stuff. You can then, and getting a little more backstory with you and your rival. You can then go and choose either a tower that makes the Pokemon water-based Pokemon, or dark. I chose dark, and Kubfu turns into this monstrous killing machine that is pretty broken and can kill almost anything, which is cool. There's little Diglets you can pick up all around. There's like 150 of them, I think, or 120, 150, something. I caught most of them, and just by finding them on the field, picking them up, and it tells you how many you have left over, and you get moves and different things, and if you collect all of them, you get one of them to keep. Yay! Kind of pointless, to be honest. I did like that certain areas you can't explore until getting close to the end game, where you get your bicycle that can run on water, so that lets you explore certain areas, get more things. And then once you beat the game and you come back, you can have a battle with your sensei and do a little more extra quest things here and there. You can collect more energy to level up and make your dojo better, and then it sort of lets you go out into the water, and you can catch some pretty rare Pokemon. And then it sort of gives you the feeling that there's going to be more stuff to do further post game when the other expansion drops. So I do like that it's sort of tiered that way. it's on its own. If you're just paying for the one piece of DLC and not the expansion pass, I would honestly recommend against it, because it's only about, at best, an hour and a half of story and maybe 5 to 6 hours total of collecting things. But as a package, it's a lot cheaper if you get the package to get, the extra expansion to get the second expansion that comes later on. Together, that's going to make it a good value. But separately, if you can't afford to get the bundle of them together, wait till you can. Like, don't buy it separately and then get the one later on. Also, make sure when you're purchasing the expansion that you purchase the version of the expansion that's made for your game. Yes, it's the Isle of Armor, but if you have the the sword version of Pokemon, don't buy the armor expansion of Armor Island. Buy the sword expansion of Armor Island. And yes, there's been some confusion there. Nintendo has been pretty good, apparently, of people that have made mistakes swapping it out for you or doing a refund so you can purchase the right one. It would have made sense if they made one expansion for both. That's Nintendo. Sometimes they're a little behind when it comes to internet stuff and the way things work with shops. We all know that. And there was some confusion and worry because they've got pretty strict rules on refunds. But in this particular case, it seems to be they're pretty good at swapping it out. So if you're buying the game for the first time, buy the game, buy the expansion pass. Don't just buy the individual expansion, because it's not worth the money on its own, but it is really worth it if you're going to get the whole expansion pass.
What makes you qualified to be a reporter? I'm willing to violate anyone's privacy for my personal gain and then claim with a straight face that the public has a right to know.
By the hand of Zeus, what manner of deviltry is this?
I love fake alien poop day.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is I, Mike the Birdman, joined with Alex the producer. Well, it is time to break things down here on planet Earth as we talk to you about the strange, the unusual, the things that may or may not happen in the tabloids or on the back of conspiracy websites everywhere. It is the weird news, and we're going to start things off with something that I think is rather awesome. Thousands have signed a petition to rename Columbus, Ohio to Flavortown after native son Guy Fieri. The city of Columbus, Ohio has already vowed to bring down its statue of Christopher Columbus, but thousands are hoping to erase the city's connection to the Columbus legacy even further by renaming it Flavortown in honor of Columbus native Guy Fieri. As the widespread conversation about police brutality and racial inequality continues into another week, statues of Columbus are being brought down across the nation to bring awareness to the cruelty he brought upon Indigenous people. Columbus Mayor Andrew Ginther announced earlier this week that the statue outside City Hall would be removed and placed in storage. For many people in our community, the statue represents patriarchy, oppression, and diversiveness. That does not represent our great city, and we will no longer live in the shadow of our ugly past, he said in a statement to CNN affiliate WTTE. But for Tyler Woodbridge, who spent over 7 years of his life in Columbus, the statue's removal wasn't enough. Even though it's my favorite city, I was always a bit ashamed of the name, Woodbridge told CNN. So the 32-year-old started a petition to rename the city to Flavortown in honor of Fieri, the celebrity restaurateur who was born in Columbus. Fieri's use of the expression on his various shows on the Food Network has become his signature catchphrase. Woodbridge described Fieri as a very charitable man, pointing to the fact that the famous restaurateur has helped raise more than $20 million for restaurant workers during the pandemic, and now that he's officiated more than 100 LGBTQ weddings. That kind of optimism and charitable work embodies more of what Columbus, Ohio is about rather than our tarnished legacy of Christopher Columbus, Woodbridge said. But the fact that Flavortown came from Fieri is a bonus, and now the main reason why he's pushing for the name, Woodbridge said, describing the city as a melting pot of different cultures and nationalities. Woodbridge said the name would honor the city's proud heritage as a culinary crossroads and one of the nation's largest test markets for the food industry, according to the petition. As of last Sunday afternoon, more than 17,000 have signed the petition, and it grabbed the attention of Budweiser, which offered to give out free Budweiser seltzer to all the city residents if the name is officially changed to Flavortown. Woodbridge, who currently lives in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, said he's planning on driving back to his hometown soon to deliver the printed petition to city officials. Others have proposed changing the city's name after an indigenous figure, which Woodbridge says he also supports. All he really wants is for the city to no longer be named after Columbus. We as a culture in America are waking up to how bad of a person he was, Woodbridge said. Now is the time for progressiveness. It is time for a change. Could not agree more. This is a great idea.
Well, and you get people that are saying you shouldn't ever change the past. Look at every other country in the world that's civilized. When there's great injustices, you don't keep it. Like hell, Kitchener was not called Kitchener. It was New Berlin for the first 100 years it was around that I live in. They changed the name in World War I because of anti-German sentimentality. As alluded to earlier, they destroyed the statue of Kaiser Wilhelm and named it Kitchener after Lord Kitchener, who himself is not a great person. There's been talk of wanting to rename the city a few times to something that isn't glorifying, anybody that was like a war person. So, and then that brings up, they're like, oh, they could amalgamate it into Waterloo. It's like, well, Waterloo can be also like, we would have to pick a name that would be synonymous with none of those things. And the talk was, well, maybe we should just change it back to Berlin, because that was the original name of the city. And the city still has German roots and heritage. So like, it would be kind of interesting if they changed our city to that again.
I think that'd be kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, but it was literally called New Berlin. I don't think they might call it New Berlin. That would be interesting. It would be cool. Like, Kitchener's fine. Like I'm okay with the names because none of our names are like uber offensive, but I can totally see how certain people in certain areas, might not want to be called. Like, you wouldn't want to be living in a city called Little Hitler, or you know what I mean, or something to that extent. And to some people living in a place called Columbus, that's what it means to them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, since I'm of First Nations descent, Columbus, not a great guy. But you look at all the good that Guy Fieri has done over the course of his career. I know during COVID, no other than just his charitable work, he's out feeding frontline workers. When there was the big wildfires in California last year and the year before that, he was feeding first responders. And that's his own time, money. It wasn't a PR stunt. He's literally just a good guy. So why the hell not? And I can imagine Guy Fieri not taking much credit, if anything, if they were going to do Flavortown, Ohio, make that a culinary hotspot in America. Like, turn it into the next New York or LA. Have Gordon Ramsay set something up there. Have Bobby Flay. Have anybody from the Food Network. Hell, put the Food Network studios in Columbus, Ohio. You could build a new industry there.
Wait, would the Gordon Ramsay one be like Fuck You Avenue?
Well, I know he closed like a couple of restaurants because of COVID, but maybe in honor to prop up and to do this and support presumably a person he probably considers at least a peer. I don't know whether they're friends or not. That'd be something.
I would say most famous chefs or celebrity chefs don't consider him a chef, even though he is, because of the way he dresses and the way he performs. They might see him as a culinary colleague, but they probably don't see him on the same level as like a fine dining chef, even though he has the training for it. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those weird things. Like it's weird, but you probably wouldn't see him at a fine dining restaurant with Spago Pak, or Wolfgang Puck. Sorry, you probably wouldn't see them doing the same thing together. But it would be interesting. He's somebody who sort of changed the culture to show that you could be a dude bro, in quotes. You could be like a college dude that happens to be a successful restaurateur. And ever since then, we've seen a lot more people come out like that. He also seems to be one of the most genuine people on, especially on like the food channels. Like when he brings out friends and family, and they just, there's a scripted nature to his programming, but not. They always show the bloopers, which a lot of the shows don't do. Like, you don't see a Martha Stewart show where they show her messing up and going, well, shit, and then starting over. He'll keep his bloopers and they'll put them in the credits. Yeah,
like he's always come across to me as very genuine in every interaction that he has, and as a performer and as a person in front of the camera, I can usually spot fakeness with him. Anytime he meets someone, I have a feeling every handshake you get is probably, I'm glad that I met you, if only for a few seconds.
Yeah, and there's obviously going to be that bit of snarky attitude he has can be there too. If you say something stupid, he'll call you out on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or make a joke, but nothing malicious. And actually, as I was saying that about Martha Stewart, I completely forgot she has that cooking show with Snoop Dogg. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have used her as a reference. But it would be, you want tourism. That'll give you tourism.
Yeah.
You want, and especially like, you know what? That would be a great place for them to set up an entire production studio for the Food Network.
Yeah. Or one thing you could do, if you wanted to bring people to the city to talk about tourism, the Guy Fieri Flavortown Festival. And you make all the big food trucks come in from all across the country. Like one of the shows on the Food Network that I really enjoy is the Great Food Truck Race. You base that a week in Flavortown, Ohio.
You were about to say something else.
I was about to say, yeah. But just imagine that. You could literally get so much programming, so much tourism. You could build up industry around this. You could bring people who maybe don't like where they're in the restaurant industry right now. This could be a place where they could rebuild their careers.
Well, and you're saying like culinary school, you could put not just a private school, like you could get we're talking like, I don't know, like a Walmart distribution center sized warehouse, convert it into a culinary school where you could have TV production studios in there. You could have competitions, you could have stage shows, you could have all this, and then also be able to train, maybe a few hundred students a year in the fine arts of cooking.
Yeah.
And have it centered there. You could do, whenever there's a big cultural festival, like up here when we have like Caravan and things, they could do that where it's like, oh, this culture celebrating a big holiday week. Well, this town is now going to celebrate that with our food selections. So you could have 24/7 tourism going.
So I hope it happens. So Columbus, Ohio, the ball is in your court, and I hope you make the right call. So this next story I found randomly on Facebook, and I didn't think this was a thing. So according to USA Today, there's a national coin shortage. Pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters are part of the latest COVID-19 shortage. This was shared last week. Break out your piggy bank. The latest COVID-19 shortage numbers involves pocket change. The coronavirus pandemic has caused a nationwide coin shortage, according to the Federal Reserve. Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said on Wednesday the shutdowns caused by the pandemic have raised concern about circulation of coins, which the Fed's 12 regional banks are in charge of supplying to commercial banks. With the partial closure of the economy, the flow of funds through the economy has stopped, Powell said during a virtual hearing with the House Financial Services Committee. We have worked with the Mint and the Reserve banks, and as the economy reopens, we're starting to see more money move around again. Reserve and the Federal Coin Reserve, or the Federal Reserve coin distribution locations, began temporarily allocating coin inventories sent to banks to the nation June 15th, the Reserve said in a statement. The COVID-19 pandemic has significantly disrupted the supply chain and normal circulation patterns for U.S. coin. In the past few months, coin deposits from depository institutions to the Federal Reserve have declined significantly, and the U.S. Mint's production of coin has also decreased due to measures put in place to protect employees. Since March, many businesses and experts have encouraged consumers to use contactless payment systems because of concerns about the spread of the viral infection on cash and credit cards. COVID-19 and panic buying also caused various shortages, including hand sanitizer, toilet paper, disinfecting wipes, meat, and yeast. I never would have thought coins being a thing. But then again, the amount of people, just because my roommate orders a lot of skip the dishes and crap, they always say, we do not take cash. Has to be contactless payment. So these coins and everything else, like this is just an example in Canada, are sitting at home in people's pockets or in a piggy bank or whatever. The person who I poached this story off of, the coin thing was attached to a bus stop. They said, we are not accepting coins. Please present your, I guess whatever would be the equivalent to a Presto card. I guess that's an international thing too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I never would have thought that being in short supply.
Remember, we haven't had pennies in almost 10 years.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that.
I still have a few lying around, and banks have to accept. Stores technically have to accept them, except in like self-checkout machines where they don't search for them anymore. But like if you go to a store and you have a roll of pennies, they have to accept them. It is legal currency, but then they have to turn it into the bank for destruction.
I think they only have to accept up to like $1 or something like that.
Oh no, they have to accept everything. It's just very rare for anybody to have more than maybe $1 worth on them.
The most I've ever spent in pennies was $17.
Oh, buddy. Oh, no. I spent 60 or $70 at a grocery store buying chips, pop, and candy for a party. And I went in there and I tried to pay because they have one of those Coinstar machines where it takes a percentage.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do that because they take like 10% of what your money you put in there. And I was like, so I went up to the checkout and I'm like, here. And I'm like, I pulled out, it was like a Santa sack that I opened up and it was all pennies and nickels. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. They're like, could you please roll them? I'm like, and I wrote on the side, I'm like, I counted all these before I got here. This is the exact amount. The manager came out, started laughing. He's like, oh God, it wasn't busy. So they let it happen. And I'm like, okay, let's count them quickly. And I was like, all right, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And we went through and it was like $62 in nickels and pennies. And I'm like, I've been saving this up like for how long? I'm like, because I was like 20. I'm like, since I was this tall. And I put my hand down. I'm like, I just emptied them out. And they were laughing. And it was funny because a year or two later is when all of the TD banks here started carrying those machines where you could dump them all in there and it would do it for you.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have to, it didn't charge you anything. It would go directly into your bank account. So, I mean, I still occasionally get rolls of things, usually from relatives, like older relatives that still use coins.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one thing, like, compared to the States, we don't have $1 bills. We have dollar coins. Our $2 bills that we used to have for years went away in 96. So we have coins for that. Almost nobody uses anything here under, like, quarters. Dimes and nickels are pretty rare unless you're buying coffees and stuff.
Yep.
Like, how often do you need to deal with that? Because everything rounds to the nearest nickel.
Yeah, I can't recall the last time I saw a dime, actually.
Dimes are more used now for scratching lottery tickets than they are for anything else. Because every machine you go to, there's no such thing as going to a pop machine anymore and having a 15 cent or 35 cent can of Coke.
Yeah, they're always like 50 cents or $1.
Yeah, they're in multiples of quarters. Laundry machines, parking meters, everything. They're either paid with credit card or in multiples of quarters. So it's very rare for you to need anything less than that unless you're going to the dollar store or getting coffee. And because of the rounding, people think, oh, you're losing money. No, a lot of times it balances out because they round up, if to the nearest, nickel or down to the nearest nickel. So, like, if it's, you owe $1.31, you only actually owe $1.30. The only time that you don't round is when you pay with credit card or debit, and then it gives you the amount. So it ends up at the end of the year, they've realized it balances and it doesn't really cost anybody anything. And that's how it was for years. In a lot of European countries, not only is the tax included in the price that they advertise, they a lot of times will just say, screw it. Why would somebody want to pay, after taxes, $10 and 64 cents for a t-shirt? They'll just be like, all right, $10.50. And they end up making it up in volume later on. So I'm surprised that coins are such a big issue in the States, especially pennies now. Like, why do you need pennies at all?
I think you see it mostly in like grocery stores.
Yeah, but why do you need pennies? Like, just how hard is it just to go, instead of the bananas costing 57 cents a bunch, why don't you make it 55 cents?
Yeah, or make it like an even 60 or something like that.
Like, and if anybody's going to gripe about that, the idea like that it's just so much easier and more convenient. Who wants to carry change around? The
only place I've seen pennies used in the last 10 years was in the States when I went to Las Vegas. I saw penny slot machines.
Well, and even here, you can't do that. You don't, you can't, well, that was a long time ago when you went, right?
2014.
I was going to say, that
the last time I went to Casino Niagara, however, they had penny slot machines, but that was like 2008.
I was going to say, in Canada, there's no such thing as using coins in slot machines anymore. You have to load up a card, like a Palladium card, and it loads from there. It doesn't even spit out coins. You can't put coins in. So when you find a penny machine, it doesn't matter if it's a penny machine. You still have to use a credit card. So I don't know if it's like that in Vegas yet, but all across Ontario, every single slot machine is replaced with those, like the last 5-6 years.
Oh, You learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Speaking of learning things new every day, this story comes courtesy of the BBC.com. A Stonehenge, according to them, a Neolithic monument has been found near the sacred site. A ring of large shafts discovered near Stonehenge from the largest prehistoric monument ever discovered in Britain, archaeologists believe. Tests carried out on the pits suggest they were excavated by Neolithic people more than 4,500 years ago. Experts believe the 20 or more shafts may have served as a boundary to a sacred area connected to the henge. The size of the shafts and circuit is without precedent in the UK, said Professor Vince Gaffney, a lead researcher. The 1.2 mile wide circle of large shafts measuring more than 10 meters in diameter and 5
Keep
meters.
saying shafts.
Yeah.
Because I'm 12 and laughing.
In depth are significantly larger than any comparable prehistoric monument in Britain. A team of academics from the universities of St. Andrew, Birmingham, Warwick, Bradford, Glasgow, and the University of Wales, Trinity St. David worked on the project. The pits surrounding the settlement of Durrington Walls, 2 miles from Stonehenge, were discovered using remote sensing technology and sampling. Professor Gaffney of the University of Bradford said the discovery demonstrated the capacity and the desire of Neolithic communities to record their cosmological belief systems in ways and at a scale that we had never previously anticipated. The area around Stonehenge is amongst the most studied archaeological landscapes on Earth, he added. It is remarkable that the application of new technologies can still lead to the discovery of such a massive prehistoric structure. When these pits were first noted, it was thought that they might be a natural feature. Only through geophysical surveys could we join the dots and see there was a pattern on a massive scale. Professor Gaffney said a proper excavation was required to determine the exact nature of the pits, but the team believed that they acted as a boundary, perhaps marking out Durrington Wells as a special place or emphasizing the difference between Durrington and Stonehenge areas. He said it was difficult to speculate how long they would have taken to create, but using manual stone tools, there might have been a considerable organization of labor to produce the pits on this scale. The pits are massive by any estimate, and as far as we can tell, they are nearly vertically sided. That is why we can't see any narrowing that might imply some sort of shaft. Some of the silts suggest relatively slow filling of the pits. In other words, they were cut and left open, added Professor Gaffney. Dr. Richard Bates from St. Andrews School of Earth and Environmental Sciences said it had given an insight into an even more complex society than we could ever imagine. His colleague, Tim Kennard, said the sediments from the shafts allowed archaeologists to write detailed narratives of Stonehenge landscape for the last 4,000 years. Dr. Nick Schnashnale, National Trust archaeologist for the Stonehenge World Heritage Site, hailed the discovery as astonishing. She said, as the place where the builders of Stonehenge lived and feasted, Durrington Wells is key to unlocking the history of the wider Stonehenge landscape, and this astonishing discovery offers us new insights into the lives and the beliefs of our Neolithic ancestors. The Hidden Landscapes teams have combined cutting-edge technology, archaeological fieldwork with good old-fashioned detective work to reveal this extraordinary discovery and write a whole new chapter in the story of the Stonehenge landscape. That's pretty cool. Stonehenge has been one of those things I've been fascinated with as a child, just because nobody knows what the purpose is, who built it, and why. We have theories on it, but we're never going to know. Like, it's literally unknowable unless they find a cave somewhere that has ancient tablets written out and here's the who, what, how, why of it. You're never going to know. And the fact that we're still discovering things with new technologies, that's pretty cool. Like, I like the ancient world. I like things like this, the Nausicaa lines, the Great Pyramids, the Colossus, stuff like this. I'm incredibly interested in things that I probably won't see in my lifetime, just because getting there is now immensely difficult. But I thought it was interesting. I can't even remember where I picked this story up. I think it was one of my more new agey friends that shared this on Twitter or something. And I just thought it was fascinating.
Oh yeah, totally.
Keeping with a fantasy of a different kind, this story comes courtesy of globalnews.ca. It hits a little close to home. Dungeons and Dragons will change evil races due to racial stereotypes. The publishers of Dungeons & Dragons says it will adjust the way it portrays some of its evil races, such as the savage orcs and the depraved dark elves, as part of a broader push against racism in the wake of George Floyd's death. The game's publisher, Wizards of the Coast, says the move is part of a company-wide effort to address content that does not reflect who we are today. Wizards made previous changes to Magic the Gathering, another one of its games, to remove racist or problematic cards from circulation. It changes the D&D to affect the role-playing and the wide range of novels inspired by the game. Throughout the 50-year history of D&D, some peoples in the game, orcs and drow, dark elves, being two of the prime examples, have been characterized as monstrous and evil, using descriptions that are painfully reminiscent of how real-world ethnic groups have been and continue to be denigrated, Wizards said in a statement. That's just not right, and it's not something we believe in. The company says the current version of the RPG, known as 5th Edition, was designed to include a wide variety of ethnicities, gender identities, sexual orientations, and beliefs. However, Wizards acknowledge that some of its races are still steeped in old stereotypes, despite its conscious efforts to the contrary. Human in D&D means everyone, not just fantasy versions of Northern Europeans, Wizards said in its statement. The game has been accused of, in the past, using racially tinged language, which is its characterization of orcs, a muscular, green-scaled, tusk-toothed species found in many other fantasy worlds, including Lord of the Rings and Warcraft. Wizards also pledged to make a more nuanced approach with the way it portrays the drow, a race of dark-skinned elves that are depicted as evil, cave-dwelling murderers. The company's most famous fictitious character is a drow named Dritz de Orden, commonly presented as the one exception, a hero who overcame his evil culture to become a good person. Wizard says it will try to present these races as just morally and culturally complex as other people, in both the RPG game and various works of fiction. It also pledged to loosen up the RPG game's rules around racial bonuses, which previously deemed certain species to be stronger, smarter, or more agile than others. This option emphasizes that each person in the game is an individual with capabilities all of their own, the company said in a statement. Wizards also promises to rectify the way it portrays the Vistani, a race that echoes some stereotypes associated with the Romani people in the real world. The company says it has enlisted a Romani consultant to help it avoid reductive tropes. For those of you that don't know, the Vistani are the people who primarily inhabit Ravenloft and are afraid of Strahd, or at least don't like him very much. Wizards of the Coast said it is working hard to recruit more writers and artists from a diverse pool of candidates so that it can bring a more nuanced and inclusive approach to fantasy storytelling in the future.
Sorry. Now, the Romani, that's the term they call themselves, but isn't that what traditionally we would have called, gypsies. In quotes, gypsies?
Yes.
Right? So the idea was, I guess, for Strahd, that area was supposed to resemble
Transylvania sort of thing.
Transylvania, Romania, the Eastern European bloc is sort of what it was to represent.
Exactly, right on the money.
Just for people listening that don't know necessarily what Romani means or what the setting is supposed to evoke.
Yeah. So the final line in the story reads, "This is part of our work. This part of our work will never end. We know that each day someone finds the courage to voice their truth, and we're here to listen." And I think this is a really good move. It'll be interesting to see how they address the racial bonuses and everything. Like, this isn't to the point where they're going to have to do a 6th edition. My guess is there's going to be a 5th edition revised, because they are going to have to change some of the rules. So some of the legacy content, it will still work. But for example,
6th edition is what, like 4 or 5 years away, you think?
I would think so. Like, for example, with like D&D, there was D&D 3 and then there was 3.5. And then I guess if you want
you think it'll be a 5.5?
Probably, or they'll call it advanced D&D 5th ed or something. They'll figure out something to kind of do with it. And I don't think this is a terrible thing, because like one of the things in the monster manual, they say this race is evil, categorically evil. Yet there are examples of this. They bring up the drow Dritz de Orden, who I think is from Forgotten Realms. Yet I think of another character, Xanathar, who is a beholder, the giant floating eyeball with all the tentacles, and it runs the Thieves Guild, I think, in Waterdeep. And
which is kind of hilarious. It's like,
yeah, and
you go in there and be like, I'd like to sign up to be a thief, and it just turns around and stares at you. You're like, don't look at it.
yeah, because it can vaporize you if it wants. And
don't look at it. And it just puts down its, and it just like, it looks ominous, and then it just goes, and what's your name? Okay, we have an opening at this time.
And it has a pet goldfish that often dies and is replaced in secret, which I thought was a great little piece of lore building.
Just like Ricky from the Trailer Park Boys, he had Goldie, who he would feed alcohol and smoke weed with, and then whenever it would die, Bubbles would replace it because he didn't want to have to explain the concept of death to him. Yes, again, D&D has a lot to in common with Trailer Park Boys, it seems.
Yeah, like, I think this is a move in the right direction, and I know it's going to piss some people off because there was always the idea that these races are irredeemably evil. Orcs, I've always thought, have that possibility to be turned around, and it opens the door to other possibilities because, for example, a lich, for example, is an evil wizard who has unnaturally extended their life into undeath. I don't think this is probably an extreme example, but you could say there's probably a good lich, someone who did something terrible to extend their life because they wanted to live forever. But if it's talking racially, the drow, and hell, they even addressed this when I talked about this last week in the Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. I think it's called the Kryn Dynasty. It's all the quote-unquote dark evil races, but not all of them are bad guys.
Well, I guess if you wanted to go into other media, would Mr. Freeze be considered a lich?
I guess, well,
he
extended his life unnaturally, yes.
He extended his life unnaturally to try to find a cure for his wife's disease. That is, right?
Yeah, although it's more nuanced than that, but yes.
It does apply to other media. I just don't know if they have anything direct in their lore.
Like, I'm also thinking like other races. It opens up possibilities. Like, for example, I know, again, talking to Wildmount, I think there's like player options for gnolls and goblins. Hell, we did this in Cambridge Chronicles. You went to a port city, you ran into a hobgoblin who ran a bar. Hobgoblins are evil goblins. They're more militarized orcs. Yeah, you took his hat. He was just, I don't want to fight anymore. I'm going to run a bar.
And then I barfed into it.
And then you puked into it. So,
or did I barf into it and then take his hat? I can't remember. It was one of those two.
Yeah, like there's a lot more nuance to these games if you want. And it's not like if you don't play this race the way it's supposed to be played, quote unquote, it's not like Wizards is going to send Matt Mercer to your house and he takes your Dungeon Master guide and kicks you in the balls. It's not going to happen. Like, it's obviously be more sensitive.
You have lost your right to play. Good day, sir. Kick right in the nuts. And you're like, why?
The ghost of Gary Gygax curses your name forevermore.
It's like why with the nut shot? Couldn't you hit me somewhere where it's like not gonna do irreparable damage? And they'd be like in the head. They'd be like, oh, it's even worse because now you're saying I'm stupid.
Like, I don't know, like, and I've seen people argue this already, and it's you can guess who's arguing it right now. It's like D&D doesn't need to be woke and all this crap. No, as a game, it's evolving, and that's okay because at the end of the day, it's whatever rules you want to play. It's your style, and if this makes the game feel more inclusive, if it eliminates some harmful kind of stereotypes, because I remember. We can even trace this back again to kind of Cambridge Chronicles, and we addressed it when we played the Marvel Phase Rip game, Marvel superheroic role-playing. There was a skill called Oriental Weapons. And we're like, that's not very culturally sensitive. And because Tristan's character, who was an Asgardian, we're like, well, why would Thor know how to use Oriental weapons? We're like, well, let's change that to Asgardian weapons, and it made sense.
Well, and even then, you understand where they were coming from. They didn't mean it to be like
derogatory,
didn't mean it to be racially insensitive. They're weapons that come from the Orient. That is a thing.
Yeah,
it's just the word Oriental has come to see, to be used a certain way or seen a certain way, and. I've even spoken to this with my friends who are Asian. I'm like, does the word Oriental bother you? They're like, no, it bothers our parents though.
Yeah, I mean,
And I was like, really? Like, yeah, like, because at the time that was used as a term, it's like, oh, the foreign, the weird Orient. And I'm like, well, how come it doesn't bother you? Like, because it's not really used like that anymore. So things evolve and change, but they can see, they'd be like, yeah, my grandparents, my parents would see that. And they'd be like, oh, when they see that, they just think stereotype.
yeah, I mean, for example, when I grew up with my grandparents, they used to call Chinese people and Asian people Oriental, and I didn't know that was racist till I was in my mid-teens or 20s.
No, not to say it wasn't, but it wasn't viewed like it was viewed. It was a term that may have been racist, but it wasn't the term that was viewed. That was like the technical term. That's what you used to say. And then it was then viewed as, after the fact or during the fact, but it wasn't like widely known. Like they may not have even known that it was the wrong thing to say.
Yeah.
Back then, it would have been more offensive to just assume everybody that was Asian was Chinese.
Yeah.
And you would have heard people saying that. I was like, from Japan. It'd be like, oh, that Chinese person over there. It's like, no, they're Japanese.
Yeah.
But so a lot of times they would just use the word Oriental to be like, I don't know what country they're from, but they're Oriental.
One of the other things that I've seen people talk about, I can't really speak to this because I don't know a lot about the setting, for example. People are saying the Dungeons and Dragons setting Dark Sun is very racist. I don't know, but if people are saying
I don't know either.
They're probably on the something. I know Ravenloft, as we mentioned, with the Vistani and the Romani stereotype. Yeah, that's pretty problematic. I mean, even when you read the newest edition of Curse of Strahd, they talk about them being a superstitious yet quiet lot of people. It's written more sensitive than it was in the 1980s and even in the 2000s when they updated the setting.
Back then, they would have probably just been like their purse cutters and all that sort of stuff, because that's what they used to terminology. Anything that was a gypsy was viewed as they're thieves, they're this, they're tricksters, they're all that. And that was common lore in a lot of fantasy stuff too.
Well, yeah, I mean, even in Vampire the Masquerade, there's a clan called the Ravenos, and they directly mention they come from Romani blood, and they're known as tricksters. They have the power of illusion. I can't remember what the discipline's called, but they play the racial card pretty hard. And early Vampire did have some pretty tropey stuff that doesn't hold up well today.
And on top of that, sorry, just you also have the issue where it's the Romani people. That's a group of people. That's like a way of life or like a religion. It's like that. It's like how the Jewish people. It doesn't mean that they're all from a certain country, but back in the day, you used to just assume because it's like gypsies. Oh, all Romanians are gypsies. It's like, no, that was a group of people, but again, it became a derogatory term for anybody from Romania.
Yeah, like I had
my sister-in-law, her family's Romanian. Like, I'm like, do you get offended by that? She goes, we get offended by when people say gypsies, not because we are the Romani, which they aren't. They're just like, but because everybody's lumped into, oh, the word gypsy means Romanian thief.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's derogatory even in their own country to use the word gypsy as to say to somebody who's like, just like, oh, I don't trust them, they're a gypsy. It's like, well, they're not even part of that group. But
Wow.
it's like a term you use like just for basically it's the equivalent of us saying white trash. Like that's what I mean? It's that that's the kind of connotation it has over there. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I didn't know that. I'm like, oh, so it's a bigger issue than just Romani people.
Like I'm looking forward to seeing what Wizards does with it. I know other role-playing games have other problems in how they present racial stereotypes. I know, for example, one of the games that I thought handled it good, but I really have to reevaluate it, how I think about it, is Shadowrun, for example. They feature very prominently Native American and First Nations people as a very powerful organization known as the Native American Nations. But in the books that I've shown you, in a book that you own, for example, you look at what the street shaman looks like and the tribesmen, and they look like something out of the they look like something out of the 1830s. They look like they just came from the Battle of Wounded Knee. It's very over the top tropey, but they've made them powerful in the fact that they control land, they control government, they've got their own military. They're a very powerful people, but it's been treated kind of tropey in that, and writing writing any kind of First Nations or Aboriginal people were always seen as mystical and magical. So I'm hoping to see that more addressed as well. So we'll see how the role-playing game industry reacts to this. I'm very interested to see what happens. So moving on to my next story, I'm actually probably going to cut one or two stories here just because we are running a little long. But Disney is postponing the reopening of Disneyland. Disney is delaying the phased reopening of Disneyland and Disney California Adventure, the company's flagship theme parks in California. The company said last Wednesday the resort located in Anaheim, California was set to welcome back guests on July 17th after being closed for months because of the coronavirus pandemic. Disney did not give a new reopening date for the Disneyland resort. The company said the state of California had indicated it would not issue theme park reopening guidelines until sometime after July 4th, according to a statement. Given the time required for us to bring thousands of cast members back to work and restart our business, we have no choice but to delay the reopening of our theme parks and resort hotels until we receive approval from government officials. The news of Disneyland's delayed reopening comes as coronavirus cases are spiking across the country, especially in California. California blew by its previous single-day high with more than 7,149 cases reported on Wednesday, according to data from the State Department of Public Health. Disney must still negotiate with unions before parks can be reopened. The company said it had positive discussions and had signed agreements with 20 union affiliates. The company had gotten pushback from unions that represented Disneyland workers about reopening. An online petition on change.org, which called for Disney to schedule the reopening of Disneyland to a later date. The petition has over 50,000 signatures. Once we have a clearer understanding of when guidelines will be released, we can expect it to communicate with a reopening date, the statement said. Disney World, the Disney's flagship resort in Florida, is still on track to reopen its gates within the next month. Oof. Located, considering how many cases Florida just had. No. Like, no. It's just so yeah, like I don't know how they can think this is a good idea. I mean, theme parks should be the last place you'd want to go.
Money. We have to have money. The economy has to live. Who cares if everybody dies as long as we have money?
Yeah, I really don't get that way of thinking because no.
Well, because you're not American and 90% of the world is staring going, what?
And it's funny. One of the things.
Oh God! I don't care if I die as long as I can have fun with Goofy.
There was somebody I said, and I can't. It was some state official, but it was something along the lines of the economy is more important than living.
More officials have said that than you'd think.
Yeah, and I'm just not pleased with it. So we're just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, we're going to leave it at that, and you can choose to believe that, but sure.
Party on. So this one, these stories come courtesy of Alex from clickorlando.com, which is a affiliate down there, some television station. So from Polk County, Florida, a paramedic accused of stealing IV bags, needles, and syringes admitted to drawing people's blood for a quote-unquote art project his friend was doing, according to the Polk County Sheriff's Office. Deputies said they received a call Friday morning from someone who was on the phone with a woman when 23-year-old Daniel Murphy ripped the phone from the woman's hand and threw it against the wall. The woman said she and Murphy had been arguing about his alleged infidelity, so he left the residence, then later returned and threw the woman's phone while also lunging at her and grabbing her arm, records show. Murphy left the house, but also called 911, claiming the woman assaulted him hours earlier, according to a news release. The deputy said they met up with Murphy and found he was in possession of 2 prescription drugs, multiple IV lines and needles, saline bags and syringes, which Murphy admitted to taking from his paramedic job, even though he knew that was against policy. The victim was asked about those medical supplies and described an earlier incident in which she passed out after drinking too much, woke with an IV in her arm, and noticed evidence that blood had been drawn, according to authorities. She also...
is he trying to clone her?
Or something terrible. Or he's feeding a vampire.
This is becoming very Jeepers Creepers very quickly.
She also said she'd spoken with one of Murphy's former girlfriends, and that woman claimed Murphy would often ask about drawing her blood. Records show Murphy denied the claims, but admitted to drawing people's blood for a quote-unquote art project for a friend. Any person in the position...
Somebody has he's got a shrine somewhere that is creepy.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You're reading that, and I'm feeling, like in the movies where they have like the strings sort of slowly build with the creepy sound, like spiders walking down the wall.
Yeah.
I just got to chill up my spine when you're like, art project.
Yeah, this is serial killer territory. A quote from the Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd says, any person in the position of public service must be held to a higher standard. Murphy's actions cast a bad shadow on the good, hardworking men and women of Polk County Fire Rescue who serve and save lives of the people of Polk County. Murphy was arrested on charges of domestic violence, battery, petty theft, possession of a prescription drug without a prescription. Again, what the fuck?
Like really?
Yeah, and of course, this happens in Florida, so not surprised. Same website also brought this story to me, so thanks, Alex.
Well, and this is reported by the Associated Press, so you know it's true.
Yeah, exactly. So from the Associated Press files, not kidding around, woman sues for paternity test on goats. A Florida woman has filed a lawsuit seeking...
So, what is your first thought when reading that?
Not good. A Florida woman has filed a lawsuit seeking the paternity test on her goats or a refund, and she's not kidding. Chris Hedstrom filed a lawsuit against her neighbor, Heather Daner, last month seeking DNA for the goats she purchased. Hedstrom paid $900 for 5 Nigerian dwarf goats in December. According to the lawsuit, Hedstrom believed the goats, Bella, Geely, Rosie, Zelda, and Margot, could be registered with the American Dairy Goat Association, a group that records goat pedigrees. Registered goats have higher values than unregistered goats. Danner, who'd been selling goats at Baxter Lane Farm for about 10 years, typically provides information to her clients so they can register the animals for themselves. She said the father goat was registered, but the Tampa Bay Times reports that the American Dairy Goat Association rejected Hedstrom's application to register the babies because Danner is not an active member. Proving paternity would require about 40 of the father goat's hair follicles for a DNA test, so Hedstrom wrote Danner a letter requesting the DNA in February. Dane offered to refund the money in exchange for the goats. She said Hedstrom called police on her for 3 months straight and has trespassed on her farm. A Hillsborough County Sheriff's deputy visited the property at least 3 times in the spring. Daner said she didn't hear anything else from Hedstrom until the lawsuit was filed.
So it's not where I thought it was initially going to go based on the title.
But it's ripping people off.
Yeah, well, as far as the weird news, my first thought was, lady, the father of your children is
a goat?
Very astronomically low chance is going to be a goat.
Yeah.
And by astronomically low, I mean, unless there's like
cosmic forces at work.
Yeah, genetic manipulation. Yeah, like this isn't the Antichrist coming where it's the head of a goat.
Yeah, like, this was, it's weird because it's so strange to understand. The world of dairy and pedigree farming is so competitive. Like, I remember we talked about this last year where firefighters in Australia were unfortunately being assaulted by, I think it was bull semen from a house fire or something. And then there was another person smuggling pig semen out of Australia again. But it's the pedigrees. It is.
All I'm picturing is it's like I'm a pirate. What's your cargo? Pig cum.
Well, it's so strange that people are willing to pay for this stuff and they're willing to go to jail.
I just picturing it's like what's in those kegs? Pig spooge.
I don't know. And I'd like to know why they're willing to go around regulations to get it. Like, there's got to be some weird regulation or some biohazard, maybe.
You know how much they can make, like $500,000 studying on a horse.
Yeah.
So even if it's not that much, let's say that pig line is genetically known to be producing superior
bacon, maybe, or
superior. Okay, let's say the pigs are known for their quality, the fat to meat ratio, for not having any diseases, for living a long time, for producing significantly stronger offspring. It can be invaluable to a farm. They could, let's say you buy it for $100,000 on the regular market, or for $25,000 on the black market. You can now make $1 million in pig farming.
It's so strange, and I guess that's why these stories end up on the weird news, because it's stuff me and Alex don't get, because we are the farthest thing from farmers you'll ever find.
So forget farm commodities. This is pig commodities. I'm entirely too proud of myself for that.
You really are. And on that note, we're going to hit our final review, which is a little something on Stadia. Yeah, it's still around. So we will be back right after this, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
A little while ago, I was given the opportunity to check out Crayta, which is a, I guess, collaborative game building, game engine / sharing tool on Stadia. Now, this is one of the more unique titles I've ever had a chance to play with. And you know how there's like Dreams and different games like that out where you can build your own games and game engines, or it's like a robust sort of, here's a I guess platform and here's a couple examples and you can just use that as your basis or create a game from scratch. This is probably the most in-depth and at the same time easy engine I've seen to do that. So it's a creation game is probably the best way to describe it. And to further get a little grasp of the understanding of how it works, I was offered the opportunity to go with some press people into the game early, and then we did a sort of a voice conference with the creators. So it's built on Unreal 4, and it was it was an interesting thing. Like it starts out, everything looks a little bit like Fortnite, but because it's built on that sort of look and feel. But it's things like one of the games we played that was pre-built allowed one person to be a hunter and the rest of people to hide, and you get to run around a building, and as the timer counts down to 0, you have to find a spot to hide, and then you'll turn into an inanimate object. It's randomized, and the person that's the hunter has a gun, like a tase gun or like a zapper, and you have a radio like proximity sensor that senses when somebody's in your area, and you shoot the things that are like random objects in the room, and hopefully you tag one of the people that's been hiding. And that was surprisingly fun. There's one that's a sort of a spin on Overcooked. There was a shooter where you're bouncing, shooting people that bounce off of a wall, and you get points, and you can go through the wall and try not to get pushed off. And it was fun. There's other shooters. There was one that we played, and I can't remember the name of it because I'm trying to draw it off the top of my head here, where it's a survival game where you huddle for heat in the cold, and you run out in groups and try to keep together and stay warm while you go through caves and caverns and try to get treasure, and then run back to base and stay heated. Pretty fun. Simplistic concepts that surprisingly work well, especially if you've got a good group of people that you can coordinate with over voice chat. Big feature here is everything in the game can be scripted, where you go into build mode when you're creating, and you can design your world from the tools that are built in, like drawing them in, placing the blocks of everything there and shaping them, and then you can script what you want them to do. There's all these toggles and things you can share with somebody. Somebody can be in your game, you collaborate, and they can, on their end, and you can see it in real time, be making changes and building at the same time as you, and you can collaborate and build games together. Pretty cool if you're really creative. I'm not great at doing that sort of thing. I love seeing those games. But we made a game where you had to collect things, sort of like a standard platformer. You collect the coins, and you can do things like get into cars and drive around. There's lots of things to do in the sandbox environment. And when you're done, you can publish a game for anybody to see. You can also invite somebody into your game with a simple code, and that was a new feature that was added later on. And it's really starting to take advantage of what Stadia has to offer, where somebody can, send you a link, click this link to enter my game, and if you have a Stadia account, you're on a computer with a Chrome browser, you click it, and boom, you're in the game. You're already there, and you can share the game. And so that was pretty sweet. The company creating it was Unit 2 Games, and they did a pretty good job of showing us how it worked. There's some videos you can look on YouTube and see how it all plays through. The program featured to share it was called State Share, and it was something that just launched like right around the exact time, like the day that we did our presentation for it, which was pretty sweet. I don't know how well I'm doing at describing this game and this whole engine experience, but it is something that is one of the few things out there that is truly taking advantage of that cloud platform of Stadia. that you can play with a controller or keyboard and mouse. I think keyboard and mouse are the preferred method, especially if you're creating things. And if you want to get down to it, you can go right down and actually like code and script things manually. If you don't want to use the built-in assets, you can get assets from them. You can customize your character because you use the same avatar in every game and every mode as sort of your way of interacting with the world. And you can, the more you play and create and do things, the more you level up and you get points you can use to then get cosmetics and cool things that way. There is a store aspect where you can buy certain assets to use. Pretty cool. Nothing like obstructive or obtrusive to it. It is a very robust and all-encompassing game creation tool. You want to make like a shooting game of like a shooter? Sure. You want to make a racing game? You could do that. You want to make like a Pac-Man clone? You can do that. You want to make a like, I don't know, like a clone of like the new Predator game or like Friday the 13th. You could do that. You can make a horror game. There's lots of things you can do with it. It's kind of interesting that nobody else has sort of jumped on that platform before. It's been done on PC and you've got some console games to do it, but nothing at this level of customizability or how quick it loads. You don't have to worry about, this user having this asset and this person having this and what their internet speed. It's just you can all log in, do it at once. It scales based on the Google Stadia server platform, and that's pretty cool. So I will put a link in the description for the show where you can check out the video of what it is, because they'll probably do a better job of explaining it, because a lot of us that were there watching were like, this is really freaking cool. How am I going to describe this to my listeners or to my readers? It's something you sort of have to experience to believe.
What about the wiener?
All right, that is the kind of show it has been here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. And this, like I said, will be our show for just a few weeks. We're going to take a couple of weeks off. We're going to do some stuff this week to give us a little bit of a break. But as we did mention off the top of the show, we are going to have some prototypes, some TWIG Sunday funnies. Loose Cannon is premiering in July. It's going to be a pretty packed July, despite taking time off. God knows I need it.
Time off from the main show is different than actual time off.
Yeah.
Like we have not completely shut down. Even when you were in the hospital with amputation stuff going on, I still did some stuff where there wasn't really more than a week. I don't even think we had nothing for a week. We still had at least a 10-minute update. So we have not shut down, I guess. Did you ever shut down in the 13 years?
I would maybe like a week, maybe two.
But did you already have content ready, or like where you had nothing in the feed for 2 weeks, maybe, Max?
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe once or twice in 13 years you've had no content for more than a week.
Yeah, like we always put out something once a week, because I know we always take our break from December 12th to January 12th. That's always a hard break.
Yeah. And this year we had Turd or Treasure, and we had a couple syndicated shows ready to go.
Yeah, and then this year there will be some stuff with Nerd to the Third Power. We're like still doing that. We just recorded the Disney afternoon stuff with like Gonzo, me, and we did it with Skyblaze's husband, Tony. So that'll be coming out soonish, I think. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this supersized show. A lot of stuff we talked about, a lot of interesting topics here, as always. So hopefully, as you enjoy this, you take your Canada Day, are safe with it. But because of what's going on in the world, I invite you to look into Canada Day a little bit further. And that's all I'm really going to say about that, is look into it. And then
also, one thing to remember for Canada Day and for 4th of July celebrations,
be safe.
Not just that, pets don't like fireworks.
Yes.
Don't take them outside with you. If you're going to fire them off, put your pets, dogs or cats, in the basement. If you have a basement. If not, put them in an area where they're going to have some soundproofing, because you are going to terrify them, and it's not good for them. It's just treat them like you treat a newborn baby. They don't deal with sounds that well.
Exactly. As I mentioned, with like being safe, be responsible. Do not drink and drive. Celebrate with your friends. If anything, take this as an opportunity to celebrate friendship. However, as we are in the middle of a pandemic, respect social distancing, respect your circles.
Where we are, for what you don't, if you don't understand, if you're in the States, what we're talking about with circles is Where we are in Ontario, in Canada, they've expanded it where originally you shouldn't have been meeting with anybody that wasn't in your immediate household. They've expanded it now so that your social outreach can be up to 10 people, but that includes everybody they're in contact with. So that doesn't mean you can have 10 people. They can have 10 people that are different than your 10 people. So try to keep your groups to, depending on your state or province, 10 to 15 people, depending on what they're saying where you are. Don't get all crowded, get all drunk in huge parties, and then you end up getting sick. Or don't go to the beach if you can avoid it. I know it's fun to go to the beach, but it's also, fun to live.
Yeah, exactly.
So, be cool about it. If you want to this is the perfect time to do your close family barbecues. And if you're going to set off some fireworks, remember, kitties and doggies don't like it.
Exactly. Other than that, though, guys, I mean, it's been a fantastic first 6 months of TWIG. I think 2020 has been one of our best years.
I was going to say, of TWIG, not of the world.
Yeah, of the world. No. This year has been dumpster fire, year of. I've honestly had a lot of fun this year. It's been a lot of fun. We're going to have a new website coming up real soon. Things are getting paid off like tomorrow. So I'm really excited. The next 6 months of the show are going to be fantastic. I'm looking forward to going back in the fall. I'm going to have some other projects to announce. Book club. Actually, before I go, I was going to talk about this. My package that Ken sent me of all the Dragonlance books, that's been sitting in quarantine since the 18th. So
not due to his fault. Just
just the way it
U.S.
works.
Postal Service and Canada Post for importing stuff right now. They're sitting for about 10 days before they release them.
Yeah, so I am going to read. I just need the damn books. So don't worry, that is coming up in July. Because Alex has mentioned to me we're going to take JRPG July. I'm going to be reading the first book of Dragon's Lance. And then basically my goal for each book club is to switch up genres every time, just so I'm not always reading fantasy.
Should we get you a Harlequin romance novel?
I'd read one. I'd try it.
Like, do we pick it based on the reviews, or do we pick it on how hunky the guy on the front is?
Honestly, actually, I already know the romance novel I'm going to read because it's supernatural romance and it's really fucking cool.
Okay.
Though I don't know how problematic she is now, so I'm gonna have to look into it.
Here's the thing: problematic or not, I can separate the fiction from the person a lot of times. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to watch any Mel Gibson movies, or I wouldn't be able to watch Tom Cruise movies, would I?
Yeah, but we will see what happens in the next little bit. So as always, stay tuned. So until next time, we have been
Alex, the producer.
I've been Mike the Birdman Dodd saying be excellent to each other. We'll catch you guys again next time right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
Well, that's our show. All right, here's the deal. Every time you watch my show, I will send you $40.
Checks will not be honored.
You've been listening to This Week in Geek, your source for guaranteed nonsense or your money back. Tune in next week for more info on the most important things you didn't need to know. Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net and subscribe to our podcast through iTunes or any podcatcher. If you'd like to comment on this episode, head over to this episode's post at ThisWeekInGeek.net and leave a comment through Facebook Connect. Follow us on Twitter at ThisWeekInGeek.net and follow our Instagram at twig_official_podcast. Social media not your thing? Send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. We'll see you next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
Just when you think this show is terrible, something wonderful happens.
What?
It ends.
I have to go. Somewhere there is a crime happening.